What do you got?
Okay.
Thanks, Patty.
What?
So as the baked goods are making the rounds, I'll go ahead and just do a quick meeting overview. So just a little background to start things off. The purpose of fall planning is to review goals and projects set forth in prior year budget process, make sure that the commission is satisfied with progress and to prepare for spring planning in the next budget cycle. As you will see today, the budget priorities for the current fiscal year 23-24 are either complete, in progress, or in planning. In discussion with Port staff, we are hoping to get clear direction on the items in front of you this afternoon with specific attention to 4 items that the staff sees as priorities. One, we're hoping that we can proceed with the South Apron T Hangar financing and construction project. This project has a higher return on investment using the port's cash reserves. This strong return is based upon a number of federal and state grant programs. The timing is right to pursue this project and is the lowest hanging fruit in helping the airport gain self-sufficiency. Number 2, proceed with either a street light or roundabout and as much of First Street as possible with the EDA grant. Let's get KPFF rescoped and working at that intersection. This project will relieve IAMP triggers for traffic counts on the waterfront for as much as the next 2 decades. EDA has expressed interest in reviewing a scope change at this early stage of the project. It will be critical that the commission approve a scope change of KPFF's contract and encourage staff to proceed with additional grant applications, specifically with the new Connect Oregon program coming out in January. But the commission still needs to be committed, if those grants don't come through, to actually spend some of our cash reserves to continue to complete that project. So the third item, which I think is a huge priority, and that's to procure a general services agreement for architectural services. The port needs assistance in remodeling the Marina One building or the Wasco buildings in conjunction with the administrative building relocation, considering layout and design services for lower mill development, updating the port's floor plan graphics for its many commercial buildings, and the potential of smaller commercial structures along Nichols Basin. 4, procure a public relations communications contract. This contract would focus on increasing the port's social media presence, facilitate a rebrand of the Port of River as it prepares for its existence without tolls, show the positive impacts of the toll bridge to the community and job creation, economic input, and prepare for the bridge's centennial anniversary, which has already captivated many in the community. There are other priorities and decisions to be considered this afternoon, but with these 4 directives, I feel confident that staff will be able to make good progress meeting budgetary goals while meeting the themes that have been discussed over the last 12 months. Details on these priorities will be heard later on this afternoon. So with that, if there's any other questions, we can get into the mission and vision setting item on the agenda.
Oh, okay. So not Mike,
What's that?
not Michael.
I say we just keep moving until
If he's not around, I can cover all of those items. Those are well known.
Okay. So with that, then I'll move. Yeah, so I'm gonna turn it over to Tor to kind of go through and Kevin to go through stuff. We've got 50 minutes slated for this topic.
I think we can do it 20,
Okay.
honestly. So as a junior person on the commission, I would say the one problem or struggle that I've had is direction. Staff takes direction from the executive director takes direction from the commission takes direction from the mission and vision. Our mission says basically economy and quality of life. Great. It's super vague. That could work if we then had a vision that was super specific and said, this is how we're going to achieve it. But it doesn't. Our vision is this massive word salad that is basically a restatement of the value statement. Like everything that shows up in values shows up in the mission. Like it says collaboration and values, and then there's a sentence about it in the vision. So I just want to talk very briefly about what a mission and what a vision are in a way, and then talk about the problem that I have as a commissioner personally in figuring out what we are supposed to be doing. A mission statement says, a mission statement is the why. Why does your organization exist? It just answers that one question. It doesn't need to be long, and ours is pretty short and sweet. Why? The vision is how. That's the question. You say, well, how, you know why you exist. Now, how do you do that? Why? That's the question that the vision statement is supposed to answer. If you look at some of these examples, especially when you see companies like Starbucks or Google or whatnot, they're awesome. They're just one sentence. They're really simple to understand. Every person that works that company understands why and how, why the organization exists and how they're going to achieve that aim. Starbucks, I'll use as an example right here. Why do they exist? Their mission is to inspire and nurture people with coffee. So there's this real humanistic element. And how are they going to achieve that? Two ways. They're going to be the best and they're going to grow. They need to grow and they need to be the best in order to fulfill their mission. So when I look at the Hood River, Port of Hood River, why do we exist? Okay, quality of life and economy, and how do we do that? And it's just all this stuff. Well, we're going to collaborate, and we're going to be really good at what we do, and yada yada yada. I can't take those statements, and you could say to me on the one side, let's just be the best parks organization in the state. We're gonna turn all our land into parks. We're gonna create parks. I can argue that based on our mission and vision, that's totally consistent. Or you could say, hey, we're not going to do any parks. Screw parks. We're going to build light industrial on all our land. I could look at our mission and vision and say, yeah, we're doing it. So I'm not getting any specific guidance from that. And as you look through other port districts, some of them are really good. Some of them are not so good. There's one that isn't on there that I want to bring up. And it's so easy to understand that I don't need to print it out. I can just tell you what it is. And that's the Port of Portland. So you can really tell when organizations have one of two things, either professional help setting their mission vision or really astute guidance from their commissioners, because they're just easy to understand. They make a lot of sense. They provide laser-like focus. The Port of Portland mission is to build shared prosperity through travel, trade, and economic development. So they're trying to create prosperity through travel. Obviously, that's a big deal because the airport's a big part of that. Trade, all their ports, economic development. Their vision, they say the vision is basically quality jobs, multi-generational wealth, and access to markets. So how are they going to build that prosperity with travel and stuff? They're going to create quality jobs. They're going to create multi-generational wealth. That's quite a goal. And they're going to create access to markets that's equitable. Okay, so that's really, it's a laser-like focus. It's easy to understand. I just, as a commissioner, I sometimes struggle like, well, what should we be doing? And I look to the mission and vision and I'm just not getting guidance. I feel like our mission statement could work for us if our vision statement was really specific. Here's an example of a problem that came up a few years ago when I wasn't around on this organization, so I didn't know how it was dealt with exactly. But we had our FBO at the airport was operating a booming business of training in Taylor aircraft, and they had a lot of airplanes in the air all summer long. That created a lot of jobs. There were a lot of jobs. That was a great economic development. It was bringing a lot of very wealthy visitors to the community who were getting hotel rooms and spending money in the community all summer long. But it also created a lot of noise. And neighbors complained about the noise, those aircraft being in the air. And there we have a conflict between quality of life and economic development or creating prosperity. How did the port respond to that? I don't know what happened, but let's say something like that happened again. How would we navigate that? What are our priorities? Our mission and vision don't really give us a very clear what's more important. So because of this, I think it's worth either revising our mission and vision, or if we really like the mission, maybe just the vision. The value statement, I think, is great. That's all good stuff.
You know,
But
can I just jump into?
please do. I've talked enough. Yeah.
So state statute says that we go through this business plan process every 5 to 6 years.
Mhm.
And so right now, the 5-year periods may look different in the following 5-year period. And so really the mission, the vision can be for what you're seeing over the next 5 years going into bridge replacement. It doesn't mean that it has to be the forever
Yeah.
mission and vision for the port.
Yeah, when I read through all of this, the one that kept coming back at me. In the past, we had this vision and goal of job creation. It sounds like to me, we don't need that anymore. Your full employment. In fact, what we need is workers. We don't need more jobs, we need workers. So why are we still chasing jobs? Is kind of on the top of my head. And I just asked myself a question, what do we want to be known for post-bridge? And if we figure that out, and then this next 5 years is how do we go from where we are today to where we want to be? And I got some ideas where I would like to be in 5 years. And it's on a golf course, but no. But I think it may be worthwhile trying to figure that out, and then how does that relate back to the vision? And then,
Yeah. I love this. If we know if we have a vision, we can just talk about what we want to see, then we can go back to the vision and mission and massage it to match that. And that's great. Like, I personally, like, this is my thought, and you guys we can discuss this. I see the value that the port brings to the community in providing a really high world-class level of service with respect to the properties that we have and the things that we do. So for instance, having like just continuously striving for a best-in-class marina and airport. Those are two things. Providing the best possible experience that we can do, because that in turn creates a higher quality of life that makes the region stronger, more of a magnet. People want to be here because we have these great things, and parks is part of that too, surely. We have amazing parks, we have amazing recreational opportunities. If we work to provide a really excellent services for the port district, that just enhances our whole community.
so I kind of play off of that a little bit,
Mhm.
and I got into, because I'm an engineer, I like to get into a little more detail. So I answered the question that we ought to be promoting riverside recreation. And that's through the marina, that's up through the whole area. Recreation, we ought to be known as being the supporters along our riverside of that effort. Another one is promote tourist development in the region, same thing. And what I mean by that is we've got opportunities with cruise lines. And that whole finger out there, that could be developed into something that's really nice. That's one thing. Multi-use community center down on lot 1. I think that brings a lot of value to the area. But it kind of helps, and I said restaurants, small businesses down along the river as well. But it's really generating. What are we here? We're here to really stimulate that and be known for, wow, they do a really nice job of that. And I think, personally, I think getting away from land development outside of down here at the port, I think that's something that we should probably move away from. Because there's not a lot of money there anyway, from what I can see. Stuff like that. Airport development. The focus there is get it self-developed. will it ever be a one of these real boutique airports for high income people?
Maybe. With a
Maybe,
nicer.
probably not in my lifetime, but maybe. If that's what we want, then we ought to be moving in that direction, but we need that vision.
Can I get input from Heather? Hello, Heather.
Yes, as soon as I can figure out how to unmute. Yeah, can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay. I agree that our mission and vision statements aren't ideal, especially the vision statement is way too long. I don't agree that we take like orders from the mission and vision statement. I feel like we want to be aligned with it. But I feel like it's more a general statement to say who we are, especially to outside people looking in, but also something that we want to follow. I wrote down for a possible mission statement our mission is to continue to develop, maintain, and manage port-owned resources through skilled and knowledgeable personnel who exhibit a work ethic that reflects the port's values. Also, the vision statement, I think our vision, what I see it to be, is to be a strong and healthy agency that adds value to our community and is viewed positively by our constituents and neighbors. Very general. I feel like it should be something that could be easily memorized by all. Something nice and short and to the point.
Ben? Comments?
I think this is the perfect time for this organization to reevaluate that. I agree with everything everyone said. Short and sweet. It's not specific. It's a statement of who we are. Nothing specific as far as this project or that, but I agree. I think less is definitely more, and even if it's going to be just for 5 years, some other commission can decide in the future if they want to change that. But we probably are at a perfect time to kind of adjust who we are in writing. And yeah, no, I agree with everything I've heard. Who wants to take a crack at writing? You just, I think some of the words that I've heard as far as, I think there'll still be development in our future, but it might be different, perhaps was planned for a decade ago. Accessibility, world-class experiences, call it the airport, call it the waterfront, accessibility for as many people as possible. Yeah, that's what we promote. Supporting other organizations and businesses in this community, absolutely.
Yeah, I like Heather's higher level of we want to promote things by having a supportive staff that is, we want to hire the best so that we can be the best for the community and the surrounding areas. So it's interesting. I've been going through a lot with my child in school, and they keep referencing their mission statement, and it's literally 8 words. It's like life through passion, learning, and sense of place. And it's so simple, but then when you start to talk about it, everything's referenced, everything circles back to it. And I agree with you, Tor, that our value statement, whatever we decide we want to do, it can hit one of our values. So then we don't really need to do anything, or we can do whatever we want. And I think I agree that if we need to just focus it a little bit more and keep it simple. I love that.
So what would be the next step on this? Take a crack at read.
I mean, I think. I think. Tori, I know you've thought a lot about this. Have you thought about vision and mission statements that you'd like to throw out there? I mean, I think Heather took a good crack at it and has some good thoughts on things.
Yeah, I like hers too, but even simpler, I would say. I like the mission that we have now, which is basically quality of life and economy, yay. The brevity's good. It's maybe a little bit too vague, is all.
Call it motherhood apple pie.
Yeah, right. So if we can, we kind of have a shared idea for what we want to do. We want to see, I mean, some of these, at least one of these other port districts has a thing where I don't remember which one it is, where it was like, we want to provide great services for our properties or something like that. It's not worded elegantly at all, but something like that. I mean, something like Starbucks can give you a good template. Because they're talking about like how they're going to do what they're going to do. They're going to do it by growing and being like the best. So maybe like being the best at providing port services is something in the vision. It's how we achieve it, and providing accessibility. You get that in the Port of Portland one too, where they talk about equity. They talk about making sure that they're maximizing access for everyone.
Wouldn't that be a subset of being the best? Because if you are the best,
You're
obviously-
doing that. Yeah, you could
Yeah.
argue that. You could argue that certainly. And the value statement kind of serves to flesh that out, right? So the vision statement, not the mission, but the vision, like how are we going to achieve what we want to achieve? We're going to do that by being a world-class port district, for instance. That the vision could be as simple as that.
Can I jump in there?
Yeah, please do.
And I've seen thousands of these things.
Yeah.
And it just bugs the crud out of me when I hear world class.
Because what does it mean?
What does it mean?
Yeah.
And do you really have the money to be world class?
Yeah, maybe not.
No, you don't.
Yeah.
You really don't.
But we want to be the best we can be.
That's better.
Yeah.
Okay, and to me,
Mhm.
you want to focus it down.
Okay.
Don't make it so
Too broad.
too broad.
Mhm.
You want to focus it down to what do we want to be known for
Mhm.
as an organization? And if you can narrow it down to that, and then we're really focused on making sure we're doing everything that supports that,
Mhm.
then you're there.
So one of the things that I like is where my son goes to school, all of the emails that everyone signs off on. So the staff has embraced it and they stand by it. And so theirs is life improvement through people, place, and passion. Very simple.
Mhm.
But the staff can.
Yeah.
So is this something that we want to decide
I would
as a commission?
I would love to hear from the staff.
Or is this
actually.
something that we want to open up to the entire port staff and say, what do you see and what do you think? And
I think you're onto something there. I
Mhm.
think all of us ought to maybe go away, think about it a little bit and come back with 3 years from now, what do you want our organization to be known for?
Not in 3 years.
Well, tomorrow. But what do you want to be known for? And what would make you really proud to say, yep, I was part of that.
I like that too. I love the idea of just opening this up to a staff and ourselves.
Mhm.
And try to keep it short and sweet. Like a really simple, why do we exist? That's the mission. How are we gonna get there? That's the vision. keep it simple, keep it specific. Everybody comes up with ideas, we can hash them out, take a vote, whatever.
Why don't we ask Kevin to? Because we're not gonna contact staff and talk to them about that, why don't we ask Kevin to allow staff the opportunity to do that? Put this on the December agenda to discuss again. If you have something that you wanna add, you have until then to do it,
Mhm.
or you don't have a chance after that. But give staff the opportunity to do it, give us time to think about it, put it on the agenda in that December meeting, and hopefully be able to compile in advance of that meeting, all of it, that we
Yeah.
can take a look at.
Yeah.
I think there's gonna be a lot of common themes, and then maybe we can put something together.
So the only adjustment I would make to that is, Kevin, whatever you send as a request to your staff, send it to us too.
Yeah.
Sure.
So we're thinking the exact same way.
Sure, yeah, absolutely. We could put up the, 3 or 4 different missions to bounce off of and.
Just compile a bunch of information for us and put it in our packet, so we can take a look at it before the meeting and start looking for some, cause I guarantee there's gonna be some common things.
Mhm.
In fact, well, I'd almost say, if you're gonna give that data to us 3 days before the meeting, and don't even talk about it in that meeting, wait a month.
Have a good
Give us enough time to see first off, give enough time for people to really think about it. And then give us enough time that we're all looking at each other's. To come up with a position that we can all live with. Sure.
Well, could we say, what's today, the 14th? Could we say, if we could have the information back December 1?
Yeah.
So then the
we could
information
get it
could
done.
get back to
We can get it
us
done.
and we could have a couple of,
Because I don't think we can reasonably move, I don't think we'd wanna really move on our PR thing till we have this stuff settled. I don't know.
or is it something that we want to include the PR firm in helping us develop? I would rather see it come from our
Internally.
internal
I would too.
organization.
I would too.
I could see, if we're gonna do a PR, I could see bringing them in at the back end of it, after we've done our homework.
Yeah, but having this as part of, having this in place in advance of that, I think is probably smart.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Though I do think that starting the procurement process does take a little bit of time.
Mhm.
And so I think that if there was a feeling that we need that assistance, we can start that process so that.
I just don't think, this is my opinion, I just don't think we need to pay a PR firm to help us do a mission and vision. I think between the staff and the commission, we can do it.
No,
Doggone it.
I agree 100%. I'm just thinking about all the other
I think we gotta,
communications.
and we're kind of jumping around here, I think. I'd like to hear more about what you want this PR group to do. Before I would say, yeah, let's go get a big contract in place right now. Because PR can either be really good, or they could just burn through the money.
I make
Okay.
just one observation as we're going forward with that. If you want to table the PR discussion to a later date, just. I think what Kevin said at the beginning of the discussion could really, really help this discussion. If all of us are just thinking about from now to bridge replacement. This commission is at a truly historic position. That really kind of changes the way you work. That you think through this exercise.
Mhm.
Prior commissions were creating a mission and a vision and value statement. For the port to exist into infinity in a certain status quo.
Mhm.
This is a massive change that you're going through, and if you're just talking about point A today to point B, the new port.
Yeah.
And you're looking at what is our mission from A to B, and what is our vision for when we get to B in that relatively short period of time, you're not talking about the next 50 years of the port, you're talking about. Really to its existence through bridge replacement, so if we kind of narrow our vision to the work to be done in the next 5 years, I think that might really help.
Actually, I
away
would
from some
offer you
work.
it's less than that,
Right,
because come 26, all funds stay with the current bridge.
Yeah.
Or it goes to the new bridge. So the new port has to be ready to go
right.
26.
So if this commission's mission statement is how we get from here to the new port, which is massively complex set of information.
Right. So financial independence might be an important part of our mission and or vision statement, because that's a short-term focus. It's really important.
Yeah, or, sound management of public assets. That
Yes.
have been developed with toll revenue that will no longer enjoy that support.
Yeah.
But that way, we're not worried about world peace in our vision statement. We're worried about, our
Yeah.
job at hand for this commission right now during these current terms. That might help.
I look forward to your
Really?
proposal for these statements.
But segueing to the PR firm,
Mhm.
I'm just thinking, timeline wise, making quicker work of this, being very, very clear and short and direct of, this is the next 5 years. This is not the world's greatest port of all time mission vision statement, but we're talking about what we have to do. That will transition very more smoothly into a scope of work for a PR contract that will have more manageable costs.
Yeah, I would like to talk a little bit today about your proposed scope for
Yeah.
this.
Yeah.
Because
was
I
hoping
got
that
a
you
real
would.
heartburn on the very first piece of it.
Yeah.
The second and third, yeah, okay.
I don't wanna get off topic.
I know, but, have we said everything? I mean, I've said everything I want to say about mission and visioning. I mean, I feel like we have a path forward now, so we actually could step forward and talk about the PR thing. I mean, I'm cool with that, for sure. If you guys are.
Okay, so I guess the direction would be. We all agree that we do need to edit our mission and vision statement.
Yeah.
We want it to be an internal process,
Mhm.
and we really want to hear. What makes the staff proud and what the staff wants to move forward with, like what's something that you would be proud to put in, your email of. Like your tagline at the bottom,
awesome.
and the short elevator discussion of when someone says, why do you work at the port? And then that's the thing that you can come back to and say, this is the thing that I, believe in. And so if we could get that feedback from staff, from any staff, I don't care who it is, and the commission by, let's say, if we could compile it by around the beginning of December.
Sure.
And then we can discuss this at the next meeting and maybe come up with, and I like the thought of, because we are such an evolving port, this needs to be, it's not a permanent mission and vision statement. This is,
So wait, whose idea was it? Ben's or was it yours, Christy, to bring staff's opinion in? Who proposed that? It was you? Kudos. I didn't even think of that, but it's genius and it's a great idea. Because you guys all have more skin in the game than we do. I mean, we're just filthy elected officials. You guys actually, honestly, so.
We got it. We'll throw some ideas together and get them out on the kind of
Okay.
first of the month.
and then this will help us be able to guide the PR firm and, but I agree with Genevieve, a short-term PR firm versus a long-term PR firm, it looks very different because we're just in this very juggling cycle at this point. Okay, so mission and vision statement. Genevieve, did you want to, I had to discuss the public relations. Do you feel like you said what you needed to say? And
Well, I think it's great that let's talk about an approach to developing a scope of work. What I had imagined we'd walk away from the first 50 minutes was, a brainstorm, new mission statement and a vision statement, and then we can plug that in. So it's okay that that's not the way that it's going. We want to be more thoughtful. Absolutely okay. But then there's also, how would you as a commission advise us to approach developing that RFP? And so Kevin and I basically based our approach on 3 overriding themes that are driven by the questions, the constant questions, and how do we answer, how do we answer to the demand for information that the public is already giving us is basically what and maybe that's not the right way to approach it, but so we have broken up into, basic 30,000 foot level themes that we think could organize key messages that could then we can analyze what is the message who's the audience that needs to receive that message, and what is the best way for that audience to receive that particular message. And from that, you build the deliverables list for the RFP.
And I read through all three. The first one just kind of didn't do anything for me, and that's looking back, what did we do over the last 100 years? Look how great we are and all the jobs we created. And my reaction was, so what? Why am I gonna go spend money to go create that language when it's behind us? And where we ought to be focused on is, where are we gonna go? And how are we gonna get there?
Yeah, and I think,
And in the
Yeah.
meantime, other stuff like, hey, we got this new bridge, it's a big deal, we're here to do our part, we're gonna help. But how are we in the community gonna hold up our end of the bargain here? That's, to me, that's what we ought to be focused on. Because the more you talk about the past, the more people are gonna start shooting and throwing darts. So
and I think this was an effort, and it's always been a desire by every commission to somehow shield and deflect against those darts, because they're ill-informed. So when we talk about how can the port be the best partner for bridge replacement, that's why it's important to say, we're not a bunch of scumbags. We actually have delivered these results. And we actually have, done these good things. We were the first people to enter into electronic tolling in the state. We had the highest performing urban renewal district ever in this state on our waterfront. And we have delivered this kind of job creation, which was important until just recently, on wise investments of a locally owned old facility in economic, and we can show third-party verifiable neutral statistics that show that. And the main purpose is to show that the port is a strong and good and knowledgeable partner in the project overall. If we don't care about that, then we don't care about it.
My gut feel is, don't waste your time. Look ahead, not behind.
And is it better for the project that we not do that for the port?
I think it's better to kind of ignore it. Maybe if you want to say some really top level stats, but very top level,
Yeah,
but
not too many.
90%, 99% of it is forward looking. 1% looking in the past. Okay, I get it. But everybody knows the port's been here for a long time. Everybody has a strong opinion one way or another.
Right.
And you're probably not in one article gonna change that.
I agree. And that's always been the issue is nobody wants you to spend their toll dollar to convince them to love you for spending their toll dollar, right? So this is why we've never done this before. Is because in the end, you do a benefit cost analysis and it's not worth that expenditure of public money. But
And that's where I had my little challenge with the three scopes of work. The second and the third, I'm okay with.
Yeah.
But you still gotta keep them pretty well focused, or experience has shown you're gonna spend a lot of money
We
and
don't
not get much out of
we
it.
don't have that.
Well, one of the things that struck me about what Heather said is that to make the port a respected institution in the community. That was one of the things that,
That's the goal,
correct.
okay, and that goal requires a change in perception.
But I think there's a lot of things that what Jim's talking about is that we have been able to incubate certain businesses here like Wolf Ceramics. Which is a woman, female-owned business here employing 5 to 10 people. And so part of that PR firm is to really focus, who are our tenants? Who are our employees that are actually working to keep our parks clean and operable, and who are our volunteers that are supporting staff as we move forward?
So you guys, and over here, they're really excellent comments, and I don't see them as being in conflict, and I'll
No.
flesh out why. In the past, you know, you occasionally receive these little port newsletters and stuff. And I would argue that most of the constituents in our county, they get this data and they're like, well, you know, this is a approval rating for this, or we created a few jobs, or, you know, a lot of that stuff, the constituents don't care about. It's not making any impact. It's more, what have you done for me lately? What are you doing for me now?
Yeah.
A PR firm that came in and did like more of like a focused expose on a few tenants with a concrete, that makes people feel good about what the port's doing. That kind of attention or PR is so much more powerful than statistics about the history of performance of the port. Like, look, people of Hood River, we are doing a darn good job.
Right,
They're like,
right,
That comes across as a CYA.
it does.
Yeah.
Like you're
Right.
just stop blowing smoke up my butt.
right.
But if you tell them a couple of good stories, success stories, or look at Freem, right?
Yeah, free.
Freem,
Great example.
world-class brewer, you know, and how did they get started here?
Yes.
Whoa, the port. I'm gonna tell you, most people in Hood River don't even know that. They have no clue. They're not aware of it. Those are the kinds of like exciting success stories that I think our PR should focus on, not collecting statistics and talking about
The overall history. of
the
everything.
overall history, things that aren't gonna move the needle. Most people, if they're pissed off about their parking pass, that isn't gonna make a difference, but maybe hearing a story about one of these businesses, that might make a difference.
Right.
Well, I think that my initial reaction to the PR firm is I know that social media is a huge, you know, driver of everything right now. And, you know, the thing that I've told Kevin many times is we should be making social media posts twice a week, at least, at minimum. We should be, there's things that we should be doing on a continual basis to keep us relevant in the public. And some of those are showcasing some of our tenants. Some of them are, here's what's moving forward. We just got millions of dollars, like we're moving forward on the bridge. And it's just more of, here's the happenings of the port. And sometimes, so I'd almost put it to the PR firm. They're the experts.
Yeah.
We should really put it to them to say, this is, we're looking at this, you know, we can give them all of the data
Mhm.
and the history and all of that, and then they can cherry pick and say, this is what the public wants to hear. They don't want to hear this. And let's let them be the experts on what we wanted to do.
Just a word of caution, you can do that. Experience has shown. You could be taken advantage of
Well, yeah.
very easily. And you could spend a lot.
Mhm.
Huge money suck if you look.
It is,
So you gotta have the right oversight.
exactly.
So I'm in
But
agreement.
I understand that it's impossible for putting that onus on the staff.
Mhm.
It's too taxing. And so that's why I think going out to someone, having it be them. You know, I mean, I look at like what Visit Hood River has done recently. And they've transformed their whole brand. They've transformed everything. Because they picked the right PR firm. So. I agree with Mike, I agree with both of you.
Yeah, the whole 10-year economic study and like, this is what we've achieved back in the day. And,
No one's gonna read that.
Don't need any of that.
Yeah, I would want the scope of the PR firm to be. How do we tell our success stories that are gonna have maximum impact? And how do we get that communicated to our community?
That's very, very helpful.
So-
What's your feeling on the Bridge Centennial? And it getting some help as far as promoting events and things,
For
or
what purpose?
well, it's really been interesting, you know, we talked to Scott Rainier about the possibility of opening up the bridge for pedestrians on December 6th, 2024. And when I've talked to people one-on-one, that really gets them excited. There's been a lot of excitement about something like that. And so, you know, utilizing a company to help us build that up, to do some things celebrating the centennial anniversary.
I would not be a huge fan of spending a ton of money to promote Come Walk Across I think it's a great idea.
Yeah.
But it just sounds like another, let's spend a lot of money. For what reason?
I don't think we need a firm to help us with that. I mean, I think we can work with local businesses and organize a day, you know, maybe get some food trucks down there, like.
Yeah.
It could just be
What's the
something.
date?
December 5th.
6th of 24.
Yeah.
So we got a year.
Mm-hmm.
Right, but it's one of those, you know, I know that in other places they've done. You know, there's been you know, historical documentaries, something that really shows the history of the bridge. And so I think something along those lines would be a really nice way for the port to.
Is that
Something.
the actual date of opening? It's too bad, because the weather is.
I know. You know, I've thought a lot about the documentary and I'd love to get, and I feel bad that poor Heather. You know, and I saw some clippings that Arthur sent over, which shows some stuff, and like the opening day was very historical. Then there wasn't a whole lot of stuff, and now we're closing the bridge. So I mean, as much as the documentary sounds like a really cool thing, there's not a lot of information in between.
Well, a lot of the downtown, you know, like the Diamond Fruit, you know, a lot of that, the tolls were used to build up part of downtown Hood River. So, you know, there are other phases of the bridge's impact on the Hood River and the community. So,
I think, I may recommend we keep moving on.
Mhm.
You ought to set up a little working committee for the centennial. And come up with a bunch of ideas, float it out in front of the commission, and the ones that we kind of bite on, and go ahead and move that. Now, if you've got a PR group in place because of other reasons, it's not to say that you can't use them to help on this. It's not their prime responsibility, but sure, I could see where there would be some benefit to it.
I like that idea.
Have you guys heard enough about the scope of work for a PR firm to move forward, do you think?
If you're done, if there's no other more.
Heather, do you have anything to add? I don't want to leave you out. I thought I'd none.
Sorry, my phone's not cooperating. No, I don't have anything to add.
okay, next item.
What?
Good job. We blow through the Eco Northwest request.
I think I just heard a no on that.
To do the economic study, yeah, I gave it, yeah, I mean, I said something about it specifically.
Okay, I would add no to that.
Yeah.
I don't know about the other folks.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Okay, so now we're on to Debbie. With her financial overview. I'm gonna miss these nice ones.
This the nice ones.
Right, where we have surplus and
Oh,
money and.
I know. Well, and we've kind of had this discussion. I've had this discussion one-on-one with multiple people, but yeah, I'm not sure that the 2026 date that we all keep talking about is all that relevant, because there's going to be so much need on the bridge that I'm not seeing a lot of surpluses over the next few years anyway. So,
But to add to that, I'm not saying that's gonna go to the new bridge. You're gonna need that on the current.
oh yeah, but I'm saying.
Can't use it anyplace else.
And all I'm saying is we're gonna need it
Yeah.
before 2026, I'm afraid.
Yeah, the goals were circling. the other
Yeah.
day. I thought them off for you.
Thank you, I do appreciate that. So the first thing I believe on our agenda is to look at the financial policies, and I put that on, or requested that be on the agenda, because when I had initially read them, I was like, yeah, I was struggling a little bit with them. But as I really read through them and spent some time with them, I realized that part of it was just it needed some wordsmithing and some cleanup in that way. But I did have a few areas that I would like to focus on, and if you guys have any comments, obviously. I don't want to interrupt your comments, but on page 30 of the packet, which is page 6 of that. We have a return on investment calculation. We don't really put a target return on investment, but we say that we'll take the basically take the net income and divide it by the and then we say we'll divide it by the investment value, but we don't really have an investment value for our assets. And so I've been struggling a little bit with where we want to go with this. Our investment in real estate is the specific part that I'm looking at, with where we want to go with this, and how we actually want to calculate that. And I'm not expecting an answer today. I'm just throwing that out there, that's one that I've struggled with a bit. And I know Commissioner Fox,
I agree with you 100%.
opinions on it, so.
I think there's two numbers you need. And however we define rate of return. One is on our investment money,
Mhm.
and the second one is all in, including grants and so on. And grants could be looked at as like free money. But we would still need to see what's our rate of return on our investment. And I would like to see that anytime somebody wants to make a capital improvement, we don't even talk about it until there's that calculation.
That was how I interpreted asset investment value, was asset value of our investment.
Because another way to look at return on investment is, what if we sold that asset and invested money differently? And so there's different ways of looking at return on investment. And so that's kind of why I was throwing it out there, was just, I guess what I'm trying to do is come up with what I can bring to the commission on a regular basis that is helpful. As opposed to just throwing numbers out there. I feel like sometimes in the past, numbers were just thrown out and it's like, okay, but there's no real context or no, is it helpful for you to make a decision? And I think that one of the reasons that I think this has really been in my mind is that as we move forward, we will be looking at, do we have underperforming assets that we just need to get rid of? And back to the whole comment on jobs, because I've also been thinking about this a lot. Right now, jobs is not a priority, but that doesn't mean that they won't be in the future too. One of the things when the Von Flotos were talking about, building something, right now, it doesn't necessarily make sense. Same thing when we get to the lower mill, is that, today it may not make sense, but we as a port are looking at long-term. So, when it does make sense, what will be the long-term return on investment? So those are some of the things I wanted. And then a similar thing on the very next page is our reserves. We talk about cash reserves as a percent basically of our net depreciable assets. And I'm not sure that makes sense, because when I think about net depreciable assets, as that number gets smaller, I would expect our reserves to actually be higher. And so I struggled a lot with that discussion, or that part of it.
I think that was really influenced by the cash cow we've had for so many years.
Right. I mean, when we had so much money coming in from tolls, we didn't really have to analyze this. And our numbers were way higher. I mean, our reserves were significally higher than this 10%.
I would ask, how does other municipalities do this when they don't have a rent? Now they've got maybe some tax income, but what is their metric?
Yeah, and I think it would make sense to compare to other ports.
Yeah.
Because most municipalities have a totally different structure than we do. And so, because we are basically, we're more similar to a for-profit business than a lot of governments are. So,
I can certainly ask though. I mean, that we members of OPPA, we can put a question out there to the listserv.
And I almost think it's, reserves, exceeding the calculation of rate of return. And what are really the metrics they use to make sure that they're in financial control of their operation? And it's a multi-year financial in control. It's not just a one-year look.
Right.
Just bring up best practices.
Asking metrics from other courts
Mhm.
that don't have bridges.
Which is pretty much everybody else.
But some of those have big grain operations too, so that's almost like a bridge.
Right, and it doesn't just have to be port, I think any, what we call enterprise fund districts, so like, water districts and things like that have similar. Even though it's not a bridge, they have a water system that they're looking at and have to look at their return on investment as well. We're in a little bit different situation than a lot of places because we do have so much property. And theoretically, we could, go through and look and see how things are performing, sell underperformers or target them for more investment to bring them up to be performing, things like that. So that was kind of why I was throwing those out there. And I think that was the only comments that I had on that I specifically wanted your feedback on for the financial policies.
I've got one for you.
Okay,
It's actually on the very first page where it talks about the 5-year plan.
yes,
As we've talked in the past, I'm all for the 5-year plan. Okay.
Mhm.
But it's a different 5-year plan. What I would like to see, and this is no disrespect to you,
Mhm.
I hold you in highest respect,
Thank you.
which is saying something. What I think we need is accountability across the entire organization. So you are the keeper of the books, but you don't really influence how things progress. So I think when we say a 5-year plan, it's the organization, and I'm talking about I'm gonna call each operating center manager is responsible for their operating center, both cost as well as revenue. And they're using the finance system to collect, tabulate, present that data, but you don't own the data. You own the data for your particular area. And that's the accountability that I think you've been looking for, that when I was around, I don't mind being responsible as long as I'm responsible. Okay, this half in, half out is not fair. And that's why I think when we're talking a 5-year plan, we ought to be talking about what do you want to do at the marina over the 5 years? And how do you see it helps you with your revenue stream, if it does? But it's yours. And you're the keeper of the keys.
And so I have to defend the people that are sitting next to me right now. And I've really tried not to overuse the new accounting software, but right now I can't provide them with information.
No, I understand that. But
Yeah,
we're talking
Right, exactly.
going forward.
yes,
That's the reason we're doing it.
yes. And it's gonna lead us right into my next 2 topics, but I don't wanna skip past this one
But
unless
when you're
we're done
talking
with it.
policy,
Right,
I want to make sure that the policy, if everybody agrees, the
Yeah.
policy is not talking about Debbie,
right.
talking about the organization.
Board as a whole, indeed, yes. Yep.
Anyone else have any comments on that? Or we can move to the next topic? That's the fund structure and framework for capital improvement.
Fund structure is my favorite topic. Everyone's laughing at me. So the port has had the same fund structure basically like forever. So I'm sure at some point somebody put some thought into this. I'm also pretty sure that at that time, both the port and the world looked a lot different when this was set up. So I went through with the new financial accounting software coming up. We have to give them a structure, and so I've put a lot of thought into this. And one of the things bringing up what other boards do and things like that, we've been, I've never quite seen a structure like this. And that we have this general fund. Normally, your general fund is your primary operating fund. And we have this general fund that was kind of set up to get property taxes. So it was a place to put the property taxes and then some general overhead, but not all of it. And then we have this, what we call the revenue fund, that seemed to be really operations. And so when you look at where are your operations, they're really in the revenue fund. They're not really in the general fund. They're really in the revenue fund. So these two funds were always kind of like not quite where I felt like they should be. So basically my idea is you put them together because they really should just be merged together and have, I mean, property taxes can certainly come in. Our property taxes are so small as a percent of revenue that they can certainly come into an enterprise fund, which is what this would be. Bring them in there. There's literally no problem with that. So we basically lumped together the general fund and the revenue fund and just call it the general fund. That would be our primary operating fund. I would like to move the bridge in everything about the existing bridge into one fund. And I have two reasons for that. One is that it will really, for transparency, you've got the bridge in a fund. The toll revenue goes in there. If you use it for anything else, it has to be transferred out. So it's very obvious what you're using toll revenue for. And then the other reason is that when the bridge goes away, that fund just goes away and it doesn't impact everything else from a structural standpoint. So that's why I would like to basically take bridge operations and just put them in that fund. We already have a bridge repair fund. We'd take operations and put them in there too. They'd be two separate departments within that fund. So they'd still be very specific, but they'd be in the same fund.
What do you do with the replacement fund of the Delta?
That's its own
Holes.
fund.
Yeah, it's its own fund. So the bridge replacement fund stays as it is now, and we already have for this fiscal year that we're in right now, we created a fund for that Delta. That is sitting in its own fund. Because
That's the 737.
yes. So the additional, when the toll revenue went into effect, that money is going.
I think that politically you've got to keep separate.
Exactly. So, and I felt the same way. So that's why during the budget process, we created that new fund
So all other toll related stuff off the bridge goes into the other fund.
Right.
And it's one fund.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. So we'd have one fund for bridge operations and repair for the existing bridge. We'd have a fund for bridge replacement, which is where the
Delta.
actually the big bridge replacement one is the one where the grants that the port is currently receiving
Okay.
goes into that. And also then, because right now we're funding all of the bridge replacement activities.
Right.
So that is where all of that activity is recorded. There's literally a separate fund that the only reason it exists is to receive that Delta, as you call it, that additional toll revenue. And the reason that I set it up that way is that if the IGA and all that, when that all gets worked out, that money will go to the bridge authority is the theory anyway. And so I wanted that very separate. And so it's just the incremental toll increase is sitting in that own fund by itself. And then the other thing I want to do then is create an administration fund, or you can think of it as overhead fund, but that'll be the one. And there's discussion in our policies about allocating overhead, but the way everything is kind of mushed together right now, that's very difficult to do. So I want to take all overhead, put it in a fund, and then allocate it out to the different activities.
So do you have allocation by a percentage or?
You do it, well, it depends, you do it based on different criteria. So for example, if you put payroll
No, I
in
get
this
it. I
overhead,
understand
yeah, then you
that.
allocate it out by
But you have
FTE.
a set of rules that you
Yes.
follow. Okay.
Yes, yep. And that will also go back to that whole, like right now, Genevieve has her communications budget, except for that she doesn't just have a communications budget. There's a little bit of money over here and there's a little bit of money over there. And it's all kind of split out. Instead of just having it in one area where she can see what's your budget, what have you spent, what's left. She can't do that because it's all over the place in the existing system, so.
So you need direction from us, a thumbs up, that that's okay.
Yeah, I guess so.
This will come back during the budget process.
But
Yeah.
you're also gonna be able to show cost by operating center,
Yes,
like airports, marina.
Yeah, that stays the same.
right. So that's where I had the proposed departments.
Yeah,
And so, and then within each department, there will be functions within each department. So we'll have, I believe leased properties is a department, but then like Big Seven will still be its own cost center. And Jensen will be its own cost center, et cetera, et cetera. The airport will be its own cost center, the marina will be its own cost center.
so within one of those major facilities where you may have more than one leasee inside. You're gonna be able to see a subset of the building that says, okay, lease X, lease Y. lease
Yes,
Z.
those will be as recorded as basically project.
Okay.
And the feedback you've gotten from staff is they like this approach.
Yes,
Okay.
I think everybody,
Very
I
nice.
sent it out and everybody was.
I don't think I've ever seen a staff so embrace a software change.
Our new software vendor is actually kind of surprised by it, and having worked in software before, I know you usually go in and there's usually a few people that are like, I know how to use what I've got and I really don't want to change. But they come in here and everybody's like, yep, we're ready to change,
Good.
Yana's like, bring it in tomorrow, I'm ready to go.
Okay, so if there's no other questions, Heather, are you okay with them moving forward with the new fund structure? I will assume that's a yes.
She's probably struggling. She's
I know.
on the phone with us.
You're like, I assume that's a
I'm
yes.
gonna
I
assume
think
yes.
that's a no.
I answer your questions for you.
She's the Heather whisperer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Great. That's good.
Does anyone else have any other questions? Okay, next.
Okay, so then the other thing that
Yeah, that sounded like a whole different language. I'll assume that's a yes. Okay,
So I actually have to admit, I borrowed some of these ideas from the city of Tigard. While I was there, we did a very extensive rewrite of how we were doing our capital improvement plan. And so I don't have the kind of staff that they have, so we won't be doing anything quite as advanced as what they did. But what I really liked, and so I took just some pieces of it, because I don't have all the information yet to do a full plan yet. But I wanted to kind of get your feedback on this, because what we did do there was basically took each area. So again, pretty much back to a cost center. We took those and we did a summary sheet. So if you look on page 47, that's a summary sheet of, and what I did was, we had provided information to the FAA for the next 5 years on starting to plan, for the money that they provide to us, starting to plan on how we were going to use that over the next 5 years. And so that was easy information for me to pull and start to populate this idea. So the idea is that you have the summary that shows, here's the projects, here's how much we would spend for each of the next 5 years for each of these projects. But then as you go on into it, each project is broken down into more detail. So I took the 3 projects, the South Apron T hangers, the Northwest taxi, I think that's a taxi.
It's northwest and southwest new tax, the taxi lane reconstruction
Taxi lane,
northwest.
that's it.
And the new on the southwest. Yeah.
And then the runway rehabilitation. Anyway, I took those 3 and so you can see them as a summary, but then as you get into each individual project, you can see specifically where is the money coming from and how much will be spent and how much it will be in each year. And so what I really want to do is get, and I think I've been bugging Greg about this a lot, is to get, like, when are our buildings going to need new roofs? When are the HVAC systems going to need major overhauls? When are these big expenditures going to hit? What's going to hit this year, 3 years, 5 years from now, so that we can be planning for either saving the money to do it, planning to borrow money, figuring out where is the money gonna come from to do these projects. And so a lot of that has to do with when do they fall in this 5-year timeline, and how much, how much planning can we do for that? So I just, like I said, this was just a quick population of a few projects to give you an idea of the structure that I'd like to use going forward.
Great.
I personally like the structure. What would be very helpful for the reader is if you had paragraphs, the ability to put paragraphs down here that describe what's going on up on top, and in that light, we expect to have to replace the roof on building X by 2027.
Right.
And so that's one enhancement. The other enhancement, if it's not on this report, there needs to be someplace else, that with these forecasts, it also includes forecast revenue.
Mhm.
So we could see, are we in balance on the particular group of buildings, or are we?
And that's partly where, on these individual projects, it does show where the revenue is going to come from. Because there will be some that they, especially if they're further out, we may say at this point they're unfunded or, to be determined where the
So
revenue is.
there ought to be some guesstimate, if you will. Some of it is hard and good numbers. Some of it's gonna be a
Right,
little goosey because we don't have contracts on them or leases
oh,
on them.
right,
But we ought to put in a reasonable plug number that really points us to where do we have a problem.
right.
Will your software allow you to put this kind of detail into these?
I haven't actually delved into the project software enough to be able to answer that. I'm hopeful that we will be able to. At Tigard, we didn't use the software to specifically spit these out. We did use actually Excel. But we did have software that would really help us develop the numbers and to forecast things out. And we could put percentages in for how much we expected inflation to be and things like that.
Well, it sounds to me that you're moving in the right direction and things are positive, and it's a lot of work, but
Yes.
it's gonna give us better results,
Well, and that's
more transparency.
yeah, because we really do need to know when these big expenditures are gonna come up. And
Well,
then,
it's the
and
same
then
thing
we're,
that Kevin was providing us for the bridge for all, that giant, long spreadsheet of,
30-year CIP.
yeah,
right.
so.
And it was easier with the bridge because we knew that we have toll revenue coming in.
Mhm.
And it's one of the reasons that a document like this hasn't been developed in the past is that, well, we just backfill with toll revenue.
Right.
And we can't do that anymore. So we really need to plan better
Does anyone
for that.
have any questions for Debbie, or just we love you and?
Well, I appreciate that. I really do.
We all
Thank
love
you.
Debbie.
Yeah,
all love
everyone. It's turning into the
Well,
Debbie
and
Fest. I'm a little embarrassed over here.
Well, and the conversation that you're having is actually ties right into the waterfront parks and recreation sustainability, because, we see these positive net incomes on our commercial property, and the first reaction is, oh, apply it to Parks and Rec. But, we have
Depreciation.
Our
depreciation that needs to be identified, and I think this effort's
Yes.
attempt to show how that revenue is going to be used.
Well, that's good, because Debbie only has 11 more seconds, so.
Well, I'm
gonna save
gonna
it.
give Kevin my 11
Thank
seconds.
you very much.
left.
I appreciate it. I will take every second.
Okay,
So jumping into waterfront parks and recreation sustainability. Obviously, the good news is that the parks, paying for the parking was a wild success. And so one of the things that this page attempts to do is to look at our parks and rec in a calendar year. We're so used to looking at things through a fiscal year. So we kind of thought it might make sense just to show it by the calendar year. It's not, the numbers aren't going to tie out to your budget because you're splitting up 6-month sections. But you can really see that, we're really looking at a huge benefit in just 2023 compared to 2022. Now, keep in mind that capital outlay is different every year. And so I think as what we're looking at for this for the end of 2023, right, year to date, we're at 13,000 in the hole. But we actually anticipate that that's probably gonna be closer to 75,000.
Capital.
No, just for net operating income for 2023 year to date. That minus 13,000 will come down to about minus 75,000
By June.
by the end of December.
So this
Oh,
is
but-
through October of 23.
Right, so this is
So you got 3 more months.
correct.
2 more, because it'll be November and
Yeah.
December.
Oh, that's right, through October.
Yeah.
You're right.
And
Yeah,
that's gonna
it's through
jump in 2 months from -13 to -75, is what you're saying?
Yeah, and I think that's kind of what we
Alright.
were anticipating.
Okay.
Just looking at that, so. But I mean, so you're looking, now if you subtract out the capital outlay, there was a question about whether we should use capital outlay in this discussion. But we think it's pretty helpful to show, that we're gonna have that depreciation that will need to be covered.
Yeah.
So theoretically, if currently in 2023, we're 75,000 in the negative. And we're only showing $5,600 in capital. As we go forward, it probably makes sense to show like a $50,000 capital placeholder. In Parks and Rec for capital repairs to the restroom facilities. So when you add that on, we're probably looking at 125,000. Does everybody kind of follow how I got to that number? So the parking's making a huge difference, but we're not there yet. And so that's really where the next page is looking at those areas where we can make up the difference. And so some of the ideas that have come up include hiring out our staff to other governmental agencies to provide services to their parks. Evaluating whether private landscaping businesses could do park maintenance more efficiently than port staff. Pursue a 5-year operating levy for maintaining our parks. Reduce services on the waterfront that require the most work. Continue to raise fees for events concessionaires. And consider transferring the park areas to including the revenue streams to either the city or the Parks District. So those are the options that are in front of us. And so this is an opportunity to get some feedback from you on which of these sound interesting and which don't sound as interesting. This will be followed up with some parking system, parking fee discussions a little bit later. But this is a real high level look at, how should we tackle that 125,000 deficit and into the future. Since we don't want to raid Greg's HVAC system reserve.
I have a question. Can I ask Ryan a question?
Sure.
Okay.
You might not answer it, but-
It's like, I'm waking up. Do you feel like you have the staffing overhead to contract out services to other agencies and still fulfill our requirements? Or how do you feel about that first proposal? What's your input?
During the summers, we have a little bit extra because all the summer help, if we get full staff.
Mhm.
Depends on our project load throughout the year, that can change. We do take on some pretty big projects that take all of us and we don't have the staff.
Okay.
Sometimes coming back trying to mow gets a little tough because during the summer it grows like every other day.
Yeah.
And the bathrooms become a huge task.
Okay, so I don't know, that to me says volumes about that first option. I mean, maybe we don't have the capacity to really do that.
Well, I think it may be an opportunity.
It may be,
You gotta,
yeah,
you gotta look at the workload there, the workload here. Do they already have staff over there? How do you merge them together?
Doing a,
Do you have to hire staff? What's the overall cost structure?
Yeah.
With your overheads here versus their overheads? Frankly, I said yes on everything except. Four. I don't think we should plan on reducing services. If we're gonna be known for. What we're doing along the river here. Don't reduce it. And the other one is number 5. I think it's gotta be tied to market. You can't just raise it, because if you raise it, you'll just drive people away. So what's the fair market great, and that's what we ought to be charging. But the rest of it, I think, is all yes. It doesn't say that we're actually gonna do it, but you ought to study it.
I don't think 6 is gonna be real
Popular.
popular or plausible since. And I won't, depending on the entity you're talking about, they either don't have the capability to take care of their own now. It's laughable to think they could take care of ours, they're contracting out their own now, or they just plain don't do that.
Well,
So,
I read 6 slightly broader. Instead of giving it to Park and Recs, maybe we take Park and Recs.
that would be, that would seem like more plausible opportunity.
So let the numbers show what the numbers are gonna show.
To look into it, but keep hearing this, let's give it away, like, that's the last thing.
Yeah.
That I wanna hit, but it's the first thing that keeps coming up. It needs to be the last thing, look at it. But that should probably be the last thing, because we already have dictated a level of service that we wanna provide, we were in a meeting and we said 6 months ago, we want to provide this level of service, so.
So I think we have to put together a proposal. That says, hey, we'll take on this, here's what we're gonna need to do it. What do you wanna do? If that's what we wanna do. I think we gotta look at lots of different options with the loss of the bridge. We're gonna have to right size. And right size can either be a contraction or an expansion. And it could be in certain areas. Some will come down, some of them will go up. But we've got to be flexible enough and open-minded enough to look for those opportunities.
Yeah, and I forgot to bring, Daryl provided us a few months back with the fee structure on waterfront, I completely forgot to bring it. I wanna make I think we're gonna have to start making sure that we're being compensated for. Just like in parking, for our space, for our staff time. And and make
Well,
sure that's properly, market is right, but I don't know that we're, and there's an awful lot of giveaways that might not be able to be giveaways in the future, unfortunately.
Well, to me, we start with the market. And where are we against the market? If our costs are way over the market. Then we ought to be looking hard at what are we doing different that's driving the cost way up? Is there anything we can do about it? If the answer is no. Then you gotta raise the price or get rid of the property.
Can I ask a question about how would you define a comparable market?
Say that again, please.
What would be the market? I mean,
For what? Give me an example of which piece. you're
well,
talking
let's say for concessionaires at the event site, what should we be comparing ourselves to? We're the only show in town, so what is the market? We can't compare ourselves to the Dows or, you know what I mean?
What I
Like,
meant by that, Genevieve, is that, let's say, I'm gonna make up an easy number, $100 a month, we're charging them now. For us to jump to $10,000 a month, that's ridiculous,
right, I get,
okay? Is $250 a month out of line? I don't know, we've gotta judge that. On some,
maybe on a tolerance level, not so much a comparable level, like. It was easy for us as an extra, not easy, I shouldn't say easy, as an exercise when we were setting the mortgage rates. To compare our mortgage rates to all the marinas in the state. But the event site, it's its own thing, it would be difficult to find a comparable.
well, I think. If
Yeah, I
I
think
was
that's-
doing it, I would look at it, what's the percentage of their revenue
Okay,
that we're asking for land?
I see, okay.
And if we get that at 50%, probably
Uh-huh.
cause them to go
Yeah,
till it.
okay, that makes sense.
Sorry.
No, it's okay.
So one thing that item 3. Be interested to hear. The commission's thought about. The operating levy. I haven't heard anything specifically against that yet.
I would just want to be very cognizant of when we would go for that. I'd want to make sure, like, I know that Parks and Rec is floating something, and I know, I think that the public can only tolerate so many ballot things. And so we would want to be mindful of when we went to it. And we'd want to have, again, this would be something that a PR firm would be really helpful for is we really need to market this as an important service to the community.
And we need to think about what the sunk cost is for doing a campaign to do it.
Mm-hmm,
Like, what if we don't get it and we're just out?
mm-hmm.
So. But looking at it, yeah.
I think it would be, I think it would show the community that we're exhausting all intents and purposes before we considered something like that.
And if you did the other 6 items on here as a study, that positions you better, depending on what that outcome is,
Mhm.
to go after number 3. If you go after number 3 right off the bat, I guarantee you people are gonna start asking, well, what about 1, 2, 3, 4?
Then it kind of sounds, just from what I'm picking up here, is that really of these 6, it's the top 3 is what I'm hearing.
I think that's right.
And that third one would be the last resort.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Well, I think you ought to look at 6 with 1. 6 and 1,
Yeah.
there's some synergy there. If you broaden out the description of 6, that it could go either way.
Right. Acquiring.
Yeah.
Okay, that's good feedback.
We're running a lot back in time, so I wanna try and get us caught up. So,
Waterfront recreational service levels and amenities, so that's Daryl.
Right, well, we'll keep it short here because there's a ton of crossover. Genevieve's really, when we just jump right down into the key issues, Genevieve will dive into the parking, right after this, so that will cover that part of it. Ryan, you know, it's his department that's really going to, look at maintaining current levels of service because those big things are trash, restrooms, and landscaping. You know, that will come down to the nuts and bolts of that, but we've kind of talked about that already. Greg and I have been working on, as far as parking congestion goes, options on the waterfront, and so further down the road here, you can look at the different things that we came up with. Unfortunately, kind of in the nth hour before we put this in the packet, Greg heard back from the city on the possibilities of using the maritime lot, because to us, that was a no-brainer. You put up pay to check signs, you grade it, you don't spend a lot of money, we could redo the curb. And so Greg reached out to Kevin Liberty, and unfortunately for us to do that, we would have to utilize it for parking. We would need to pave it. And then that would tie up the possibilities of, you know, doing something with maritime with that lot. So we kind of got shot out of the sky on that one. You know, the whole point of it with just keeping it gravel and grading it was that then you could do what you wanted with it later on down the road, but there were a lot of hiccups with that. So that was one of the key things that we saw as far as an easy way to, you know, make more, generate more revenue without spending a lot. So we're kind of back to the drawing board there. And then the other things are just, you know, adding on more paid parking. And, you know, that's something we can look at down the road. In here, you know, I put down 2025 because I feel strongly that we shouldn't change any of our, not a lot of our parking structure for 2024. We need the public to digest and get used to it and not confuse people. But if the commission is in favor, in 2025, you know, to generate more revenue, we could do the Marina Beach and, the spit for paid parking as well. Then we had a few other ideas on here, but most of those would be, again, 2025, unless the commission feels strongly otherwise. And then, the redesign of the traffic flow at Jensen is something Greg and I are working on as well. So those are things we can tackle down the road. The commission in the past had wanted us to take a look at those things to better operate the properties. And as far as the beach access, you know, we looked at that, and that's in your packet as well. And all those things are great ideas, but the return on investment are super low. if you guys, if there's anything in here you wanna talk about or questions for staff.
Page 26 or 56. The center of the page where you have that. Projection that goes out in the marina where they tie up the riverboats and stuff.
Mhm.
It's my understanding that the port owns that land. And and we've had, this is from the other project. I understand it's been confirmed, we own that.
Mhm.
Why don't we put together a project to develop that area? To do something nice with it and attract, and you probably get the cruise liners to help pay for it like they've done elsewhere. So granted, that's a 3 to 5 year project, but start it. Get the plans laid out and look ahead.
So everything except the very tip, the roundabout. The roundabout is port property, but everything along that jetty going out to the sandbar is all owned by the state lands.
I asked that specific question and I was told through the study that was done by the new bridge, that's not true.
All the county GIS shows it as state lands. But
I think somebody ought to take a look.
well, it's interesting that, you know, actually with the questions we've been having, it's not completely out of line that might not be the case. So if there's information out there that we need or should have, please send it to
Well,
us.
get a hold of Mike and he can share it with you, but I think there's a.
Oh, Michael's here.
He snuck in while you guys were talking, so.
He's been here since 1:30.
What's that?
This,
Yeah, I'm looking for the jurisdictional maps right now. I'll send them to you. What,
I thought this whole thing out
Yeah.
here was owned by the
What-
port.
I believe what John has confirmed is that the GIS for the county is wrong.
Oh,
And the
okay,
port actually owns all of that,
gotcha.
that was a misrepresentation in the law.
That's a major chunk of development
Mhm.
with lot one. That to me, I think we ought to be focusing on, and I think we've done a great job on parking. But let's not flog that one to death. Let's go after the next two big ones.
We'd really want to bring them in on that discussion early. But I think that's for cruise ship docking, their preference is for it to be on the east side. Of the
Of
bridge.
course, their preference is that,
Yeah,
because it's on the other side of the bridge. But realistically speaking, where the American Cruise Lines docks now, that's pretty out of the way. There's not a lot of wind sport activities that happen there because it's so shallow and there's a wind shadow there, so.
So we're supposed to, I mean, maybe we're gonna be real pro tourist in our future. It bugs the crud out of me that they back the buses up right there. They load them on, take them out of here. There's no money spent down here at all. So why don't we think about a strategy where we can develop this, pave it? I don't know what it's gonna take, put something, concessions over here someplace where we can hit them on the way in, on the way out.
I don't know if any of you were on the commission at the time, but the cruise ships originally wanted to build a dock here.
Well, that's not a
The
great
wind
spot.
sport people would love that.
Well, and we took that into consideration, but I'm sorry. If we're worried about you from here to here, you don't get a vote absolutely everywhere.
Yeah.
And we can't just say, well, can't do that because of wind sports.
Yeah, but
I don't think that's out of the question at all. I
I
think
think, I think,
if that's all our land, I think that's a tiny little gold mine.
and it's gonna take us 3 or 5 years to really make it happen, but let's start now.
So just to share this, we went and met with Terry and other people at Wham.
Mhm.
And we're hearing very similar comments from them. They're basically getting busloads of people coming to Wham from the Dalles.
Mhm.
Because we don't have the docking capacity for all the people that want to come into Hood River. And if we can have them docking here
Mhm.
and going to Wham, going to our downtown waterfront, doing the wineries and the Fruit Loop and all that. that's what we wanna do.
Mhm.
We really,
Well, I mean, I think we're
Cruise lines
agreeing on
will
this.
pay for putting the pier in.
Yeah.
So if we're already gonna be talking about marina redevelopment as part of the bridge,
Mhm.
and if we own that,
Yeah,
maybe we need to instruct staff to include that in that discussion.
And maybe we need to open up this conversation back with American Cruise Lines, because I know that they came to us. But just the location,
Well, yeah, that's definitely good, because I think the limiting
at it.
factor
It's
has
coming.
been the,
yeah, start looking.
the legal.
Yeah.
Ownership, so.
so let's re-engage with the cruise lines and develop a really good relationship there and,
And they have expressed interest in building
yeah,
the dock. I don't know. if it's
I think every
close to
time
that,
we
or
are-
It's been 5 or 6 years, but
yeah.
obviously it's not going over there, but hey, maybe.
But, and I think that they even wanted to improve over there,
Mhm.
and the hesitation was not our land. So if it's our land. Let's do it.
Yeah, that's very exciting. I think we're the most desirable destination in this region of the gorge.
And we're not taking advantage of it, or limited advantage.
I think the main revenue will be leasing and moorage.
Yeah.
Yeah,
You know,
yeah.
Does that give you good direction? Kind of?
Sure does.
Well, there's a lot going on as
There is.
far as the bridge replacement, what we can do and
Yeah.
and then the infrastructure. And
Yeah,
a
there will
lot.
be, there will be a
But-
period that they're not gonna be able to come through there, but. The way things run, guys, it's gonna take us. If we say 5 years now, it'll be 8 years by the
Mhm.
time we really do it,
Mhm.
okay? And that fits right nicely into the new bridge is open.
We have a great relationship with American Cruise Lines already.
Mhm.
And I'm sure they would jump at any opportunity.
Cool.
But until today, we thought that land didn't belong to us.
Or at least there was a question. And
Well,
Jake, isn't Jake on your, Jake Edwards?
Yeah.
He is.
So he's actually in charge of Hood River County's GIS. It'd be great if you could. Give the information to Jake and he can correct
No, they're
the county's GIS.
Yeah,
maps.
he's actually asked us to do that. So I just recently got these from John. 'Cause
Oh.
he had done the Washington ones. He just recently
Gotcha.
finished the Oregon ones. But his work shows that you all own that whole strip.
Okay,
Um,
well, that's new, this is.
so now I can get John to get all the details of
Yeah,
what backup he had to says that.
So.
And then get that to you all so you
One
have
word
it.
of caution there. We get that confirmed, somehow we gotta get that codified,
Yeah,
that it is recognized by the county and it is ours.
right.
yeah.
and John's,
There's something in writing on it.
and John can give you all the, that's what I say, I'll get him to get all the backup for why he drew the lines the way he
Yeah.
did. And then that way you can give them to the county and
Or, yeah,
you
just
may need to meet
copy
with them or
Jake.
whatever.
and-
so.
No. Careful, be careful. I think you wanna go down through the executive to the county, or the Wood River, whoever this guy is. And you're building a case that says, okay, we're gonna be looking to develop this land and it's our understanding through our maps and so on. That's ours to control.
Yeah.
Don't ask him whether it's okay, or hey, we've got this indication that it's ours.
No, that's not what I was.
But that's why it needs to come through you to him instead of him over.
And there's also a lot of other corrections that need to be done along Button Ridge Road.
Okay, well, we're getting into the weeds a little bit here and we're way behind time. So, parking.
Just following up on those few questions that we talked about at the last session, so it is still in the weeds, but. Just wanted to see how you are feeling about a few quick questions. One is lowering the cost for the season passes in the marina lot. And if you read the memo, then you'll know that we're also talking about offering a senior discount in that lot as well, if you're into it or not. There's a little argument, yes or no. So this is just kind of a cleanup effort. We deployed the new parking system so fast and just so rough that, this is just a few suggestions on maybe how to make it a little bit more friendly next year. Also completely okay to not change a single thing. So it's,
One commissioner would offer up, I think you should, I think we should give a discount to. At the boat dock for. Senior citizens and lower the rate.
The
I don't know.
senior,
just at the boat launch.
I don't have a problem with that either. I don't think we need to lower the pass, but it's a senior discount. I would agree with absolutely.
Only at the boat launch lot, not at the event site.
No, I don't have a problem with it at Island One, to be honest with you, but where I think it's being requested is for here, and I can see
Yeah.
why.
We, staff wise, we have a problem feasibility with the event site because the sheer number of people whose age we have to verify.
That's good enough for me. But the request, I believe is here. Am I correct? The majority of the request for that?
so one of the things, and we don't have to decide upon it today, that I've been thinking about a lot is, because I know that in the information, one of the talks was to remove the event site pass at Lure Jensen. So that Lure Jensen turns into day parking. My thought is, I look at the example of Meadows, Mount Hood Meadows, they tiered their season pass. So they have a full access pass, a value pass, and a weekend pass. What if we did something similar of? We raise the event site pass, but you get Lure Jensen, the event site and the marina. Or you can buy just the marina pass, or you can buy just the event site pass, and then that turns everyone else for Lure Jensen into day passes. So nothing we need to even discuss. I just want people to think about it. But I do agree, we had public comment of people coming in and saying the marinas, it's not feasible for people, or it's too expensive for day users. And so I do think we need to do something different there. But I think it's something we might want to again, we don't want to rush and confuse and.
So we can talk about it, we can finalize the rates maybe at the December meeting. However, we usually put the online sale of the season passes usually starts December 15th for stocking stuffers. And we don't meet until I think the 20th in December or something, so it would just be a later launch for the online pass sales if we wanted to table that to later.
I would vote that we do the marina or the boat dock now. Make that decision now, give you direction so the stocking stuffers. And then if you wanna take another look at the other season passes, I kinda like the idea.
Next year.
But
To do that next year.
off at January, February, something.
I agree with you, and don't worry about changing rates, just pick a senior discount. That's manageable,
Mhm.
offer it, and then if we wanna talk about this overnight, I agree, absolutely.
Does that work? Everyone good?
So we're keeping the season pass prices the same, but offering a generous senior discount for the marina boat launch only. Kevin will pick a number.
I'm sure you guys can figure.
Now, is it gonna be just a senior pass, or are we also going to lower if you just want a marina pass?
Yeah, that was the question. Do you want to have just and so I have to explain the reason the event site worked for both is because we had a stock of event site passes.
Right.
But it's very easy to print up a stock of just marina boat launch passes, have a different price. And have a senior discount only for that. We can manage that.
If someone wants to choose that,
That's-
but
that's
then,
what I do.
but then also have the event site pass still work for the marina.
Okay,
Is that,
Yeah.
so the event site pass is our premium pass.
yes.
This next year, it works at the event site,
And
West Jensen and the Marina Boat Launch for $200. The Marina Boat Launch pass, you wanna make that you wanna make that $100 annual pass with 25% senior discount?
I think that sounds reasonable.
Yeah, I think people would be really excited about that, actually.
Mhm,
We'll lose a lot of
People
people,
that
but
come to talk to me.
mhm.
What is it now?
It's 200.
it's $200.
Cut it.
So cut it in half to 100
Yeah,
and then
yeah.
75 for
That's
senior
senior
citizens.
You wanna do that?
I think that's good.
Yeah, and I think those are price points that
I don't think you'll get much complaining about it. I think you'll feel
Yeah.
pretty good about that.
I think,
And I also think what we need to do is once you do offer that, again, the PR segment of, we listened. And here's the new rates.
Does that include overflow up the hill?
Yeah, those would all have to be the same because enforcement has to be the same.
Yeah.
Yeah, it should, so I just want to make sure.
I would like to see better parking enforcement on those busy days of people that park improperly in the marina.
Right.
Really love seeing cars parked in boat launch.
It's a lot of real estate for one or two guys.
Yeah.
Between the hook and the marina, we knew that was gonna be the case, so. We you know, the marina was less of an enforcement priority, but that can always shift.
Okay, good direction. Heather, do you have any questions, things to say?
I 100% agree. I really think it's important for us to take into consideration the very passionate input from our constituents about the boat launch parking. So I think that's definitely the right decision. And I love the tiered approach to the parking.
So we
And
can,
just to note that the daily rate will stay the same.
yeah, that's fine. Okay. We can have this further discussion January, February to implement for the next year. Right. Okay. Okay, so this next section, because we are very far behind, is some decisions that need to be made. Everyone has done a good job reading their packet, I am assuming, so we don't need presentations on them. These are more discussion items so that we can keep them to about 10 minutes each. Fair?
Sure, absolutely. Whatever it takes to get some feedback. The first one is the lower mill financing options. And so Greg and Debbie and myself have kind of worked through some different ideas based upon what we heard from the Eco Northwest study on the lower mill. So I don't know if you want to discuss these items here or need any more feedback from staff.
I don't know why we're even talking about this. That study basically said today, you can put anything you want on it, it's not gonna make any money. So why are we even talking about investing in it?
Now I have nothing to say.
With
No,
one,
that's what I'm gonna say.
I'd like to talk about the RV park.
with one exception of an RV park,
Yeah.
but I'm gonna leave that to you guys. I've given up on it.
You've
But
given
there's
up.
$5.9 million, $4.9 million that somebody could make, that doesn't include development cost, over 6 years, and it's gonna happen someplace. It will happen, and we're not even looking at it.
The last, I don't know, I have zero interest in building a monster building out there. It doesn't make any sense to me with the other things that we could put out there, but. Keeps going nowhere, so I don't wanna talk about a building out there. I'm with you.
I like the RV park.
Yeah.
So the
Really, we wanna spend $7 to $10 million on ish, I mean, I'm.
I had RV park in my notes too.
So this is up at Lower Mill.
Yes.
Yes.
So I did reach out to the community development director, Mike Shannon was copied on that. And so there is an opening for workforce housing for the bridge effort, though it's not an easy process. So, but it's one that he couldn't get behind, but he said that there is a process.
So here's what's gonna happen, and you can write it down. When the bridge happens and there's 200 people gonna come in for this bridge. Where are they gonna go? They're gonna take up the hotels. Or they're gonna get any kind of housing that's rentable, and they will drive up the rented cost of that house because they got money. And they got per diems. So we're gonna go and direct competition for tourists. We'll suck up most of the hotel rooms in the valley. Now, that's gonna create a community problem.
So you wanna think about putting in some infrastructure that will allow for that in the short term, and then. They can easily transition to an RV park, but just call it that generally speaking, after that.
Even if
Well,
you just
what I
call
was
it an
after
RV park,
is,
they'd have the opportunity to rent there.
sure, And RV park on that lot that we just leveled out now, you could probably get 60 spots in there. And easy get $45 a night,
Mhm.
7 days a week,
And that's
year
something
round for
that
5 years.
ORS 777 clearly allows us to do, so.
Yeah, if I could just jump in here.
Yeah.
So it's light industrial, so it's not, it's not an outright use.
Yeah.
And so it's gonna take an administrative process to allow for that use.
Cause
Maybe,
maybe,
I don't mean to
So
interrupt you,
let's
maybe
stop
with some
doing it.
storage
I mean,
that is allowed.
We gotta decide whether we wanna fight for it or just roll with the wind. And it bugs me when we just roll with the wind, and it's not just you. You can ask Mike, I do the same thing on the bridge. If you don't push back, it won't happen.
I don't think, I think what I'm saying is, that it's a process, if the port commission wants to follow through on that process, it's about a year-long process is what the community development director.
And we, and
But
we
wait, I
got
don't,
about 2
why would we
years.
know to go to the community developer? This is just us working with the county.
Well,
Like
that's
it's-
community, that's the Department of Community.
Oh,
Development
Department of
for
Community,
Federal County.
Okay,
So
Yeah.
it'd go through basically a zone change and an exception process, and so it's a long public process that would likely bring out other entities like Thrive and, who knows else.
But we've got basically
We should
2
try.
years right now. So we got time to do it if we start into the process. We kind of waffle around on it, we're gonna lose this window.
I think we have a really good argument, and I think our county commissioners this is something they could get behind too.
mhm.
So I think we should go for it.
And that's really the narrative is, and it's fact about where are these people going to go and what are they gonna do to available housing in
Mhm.
this community?
Right.
Now, other economic development, these people are gonna have to go to supermarkets.
Yep.
I like
You
it,
got Odell,
I like it.
Yeah.
somebody needs to
Go
take
for it.
ownership of it.
I
Well,
gave it a big thumbs up.
okay, so. We wanna know who's taking ownership of it and how at the next meeting?
So just we could do some financial performance. Now, it wouldn't be, we'd have to make the case that the use would be allowed outright.
Mhm.
And so, we'll have to just figure out how much the investment's gonna be to put into that
Mhm.
and how many years it's gonna take.
I guess the thing that I'm gonna struggle with is if I see 2 months, 3 months from now, a proposal to hire a consultant to look into this,
Yeah.
and then blah, 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 and it's a year and we haven't done anything. If we wanna do this,
We gotta go.
now's good, let's go. It is
And
kind of what I
the
like.
last thing I will say is we could do it smartly. Where the infrastructure that we put in could be used for a building later on,
Or for whatever we just.
or whatever we do.
Mhm.
But we gotta think about it as we do it.
And maybe an argument can be made to the county that this should be expedited.
Sure.
Maybe go a little faster than they normally go.
And I think that's where having, that's part of what we're looking for in that architecture contract was to help with some of these issues. This is gonna be a very heavy lift from a land use perspective.
Okay.
Okay, next is new administration location.
Yes, speaking of architecture, so since the bridge replacement project is going to require the relocation of the current administrative and maintenance facilities, we are at the point where we need to really look at bringing an architect on board and really studying either the Marina One building or possibly the Wasco building. And so I
Are you
think
talking permanent or temporary?
this would be temporary.
The temporary.
Yeah.
Why is it temporary?
Well, I mean, it theoretically could be permanent. It just kind of depends after the 5 years, what's the port look like after the bridge is complete, As I
I'm
understand,
just thinking we ought to think this is a permanent move, so we don't have to spend more money down the road.
I think
If
the
we can.
issue is though, is that the Marina One building. It's in disrepair. Right?
but it's older.
It's older. And we might, as a commission, have an opportunity to look at redevelopment of that whole area. As a business park,
That's high value commercial.
high value.
We cannot plop a shop on it, we'd be negligent,
So
but
we-
as part of something, yeah.
Yeah, so we might want to consider, I mean, I do agree that having Marina One be the spot. It's close, it's, you know, all of the things that are in here. But I do think that, you know, and by temporary, that's 8 years. Maybe 10. And if we
If you're gonna
redevelop that
spend a
area,
bunch of money in Marine One, I would say make it a permanent position.
I don't think we should spend
But
a bunch.
I don't think we're gonna spend $1. My thought would be, take this to the next step, figure out who wants to. Hey, after this bridge is built, we're gonna have some development opportunity here commercially.
And maybe
Hey,
that's the,
developer, and we wanna be a part of that, by the way. When we're really interested in talking to you, I'm just extrapolating. Our headquarters are gonna be there also as part of this development. But maybe that's gonna become real attractive for you
well,
in your development.
and maybe that's part of the RFP for the architect is help us move our administrative offices here temporarily in a cost saving basis. But let's look at a bigger picture of what could this,
Well, if that's what you're thinking, then you probably don't want to go into Marine One. Get it someplace else, and preferably in an existing building, because if you're gonna be part of a new build around the marina, don't hamstring yourself in.
You know, the Marina Green is there
Oh, it's prime.
as well, and that is like, the majority of Marina Green is light industrial. So we can
you can
mitigate,
phase it.
you've got no problem doing something there. You'd have to mitigate, since technically it's probably some kind of green space, or you can mitigate that somewhere else and something else to do that.
Let me just throw out a crazy idea.
Yeah.
Any strong reasons for or against putting port offices at the airport?
And proximity.
You want to be just closer to the waterfront because more of our. It's our locus of operation for more of activity. That makes, I mean, I get that.
They have a lot of people that, I mean, you see how many people walk in and out
Yeah,
there to pay their.
It's all
stuff.
bridge, it's
Yeah.
all bridge related.
Yeah, I guess
Or
I'm
walking
thinking when the
property.
bridge is not.
Well, that could be.
Yeah, if
That could
Ryan's
be
team
longer
is taking
term.
care of 90% of what it is of their daily activities down
Okay,
here, I'd
yeah.
hate for them.
So
to
we
have
need
to-
we need to be down here for now. Yeah,
But
close.
the thing is, though, we have a large enough piece of property over at the marina. You know, even if we did say that this is going to be a temporary office location for the port. The new construction could be phased in a manner of, we can build a building, move the administrative office and then take down Marina One.
To move into Marina One, like, quick in the next year or whatever, like, what? Just a ballpark reason, like, what do you have to do to it? I mean, is it that unsuitable as it exists?
We need to figure out the programming of this building and make sure that the layout and the efficiency of Marina One.
Right.
Works, figure out office configuration.
You gotta start with, how big a space do you really
Yeah.
need post bridge?
Because we invested money to make the offices ready for HMTV to move in, so I don't think that we necessarily need an architect to redesign the place.
Now, you will need to put a bathroom in.
Okay, I
What,
mean,
what if we thought, if we agree that, yeah, port officers and everything should be relatively in the location of the bridge where the majority of the activity is down here. We have over there by the bridge, commercial and light industrial land and a blank field. What if we put port offices in Marina One, which I assume is the first building, temporarily, do what we need to do to it to make it appropriate, and then, it's not pointing, but. What if the permanent home of the port offices were here? It goes commercial to about there, I believe, and this is all commercial. This should be properly developed. I would think it's high value. But over here, that's light industrial. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I think part of that. What if it was there? It's
Zoned open.
Well,
open and-
Green space, yeah.
So we
And
can't build, can we mitigate that into something different? We put open that equaling out somewhere else?
Perhaps there's also a consideration with 6F, which is what the bridge project is
Yeah.
dealing with now, where they've got this overlay across the entire marina, other than the blip that is Marina One and the DMV building. So that commercial space we can redevelop. It's a tough hill to climb to try to get them to release any of the other land.
Might be a
Like,
huge
speak
no,
to
I
it.
just, I don't wanna
Yeah, the-
put us on the highest value piece of land and.
The interesting point is that And it's mentioned here that this current building is included within the boundary. They would not let us pull this building out.
Right,
And so the question is does that mean that we could go anywhere?
Yeah.
Within the boundary? And I think that's something that HNTV was gonna.
Yeah, we didn't ask that specific question of, but if you are changing the purpose of the building and putting in commercial non-recreational facilities, I'm pretty sure they're going to tell you you have to mitigate for that impact. If it is recreational, then you're probably okay. But if you start putting in non-recreational businesses, then I think they're going to tell you you have to mitigate.
I think the issue is that they view the
The port.
operational buildings as supporting the recreational port.
Because the port has in the definition of a port recreational activities. I think you're okay because of just the port, but when you start going outside of that with commercial businesses, I think that's where they're gonna tell you that you would have to mitigate. Now, it's not the end of the world.
yeah, but if we don't.
It's just a
if we
one
don't
for
put
one
any-
mitigation.
If we don't put any commercial buildings on Marina Green, and we only put the port offices there.
At a dotted line.
So how about we, I mean, I'm asking staff to answer these questions right now, I don't know, but. Can we frame the architecture or the, the planning around? That, like,
Big picture.
I think you can with one caveat. So I think what you're saying is initially move into here
Mhm.
as we figure out what we're gonna do with this. Okay, the only thing we gotta figure out is what we're gonna do with maintenance. shed. We gotta find a home for that someplace. It doesn't have to be here. So that would be an action that would come about. Two actions. One is what minimal does we need to do to this? And two, where would the dock go?
Well, the thing is we look at the footprint of the maintenance office. And look at how big that parking lot is. I've never seen that parking lot full.
It's not the full parking lot. I don't know if Kevin has the map, but the part they excluded out was the two buildings and basically the parking stalls
right in
immediately
front of them.
adjacent to those.
Okay.
They did not count because all the other parking is not
Yeah.
restricted to those buildings.
I think the better question is we need to find out what's possible.
But short term, it's just where are we gonna go for temporary, right?
right, which makes sense.
So let's just look at the Marina one and
But let's not make a permanent decision like, oh, we need to be in that location when maybe 100 yards away is a far smarter one for future development possibilities.
But I think
What's possible?
we've gotta start putting a timeline together.
Mhm.
And the timeline, I think we ought to be out of those two buildings by the start of 25. That gives 25, yep, okay, we're out of here. That gives 25 to dismantle this, get it out of the way
Oh, thanks.
for late 25, starting to work on water. So we got 24 to figure it out.
Okay,
okay, cool.
okay.
Very helpful. Thank you.
Next is lot one improvements. I'm excited.
I'm gonna let Greg.
Yeah, there's
take this one on.
one change that I need to clarify. I misrepresented one of the options, which was a stoplight, as it being not effectively solving the issue. KPFF's memo clearly illustrates that according to
Thanks.
traffic numbers, with regard to the mobility target is what you're looking at is 0.8%. And the roundabout and the traffic signal, they show it both in 2043 or with or without acreway extension. It essentially illustrates that either of those options will resolve the issue. And it does not change the meat and potatoes of the memo, because as the memo illustrates through this process with KPFF looking at the extension of Anchor Way, realignment of First Street, we realized that we've got some traffic issues. And so the request is from staff, can we re-scope our focus to solve this elephant in the room for the waterfront, for lack of better words?
So a question for you, interpreting the data. When I look at the bottom of the page, the roundabout traffic signal. Just the weekend number, 0.61 versus 0.76. Do I read this that the difference between those two numbers, if my math is right, about 20%? Does it mean that that the roundabout can handle 20% more volume than the traffic.
It's gonna perform at a greater level,
Okay.
certainly.
So if we're looking for long-term overall growth down at the port with lots of unknowns, the more conservative number by 20% would be the roundabout scheme.
Yes,
Yes,
it's more expensive, but
yes, that's the other caveat.
These are engineering numbers, good catch, by the way, these are engineering numbers, it's not ODOT yet.
Right.
ODOT will look at a traffic light more than likely and say absolutely not, the queuing there, no.
Okay.
So, from both of them, the roundabout's the way to go.
I think it's a no-brainer.
I like the roundabout myself.
This will be assessed, but this is just the request we've got new news and we see an issue, we'd like to reframe our focus at solving that issue first.
What I'd really like to see too is Ben brought up a really good point that the city is about to start construction on the stormwater. And it only makes sense for us to make decisions pretty quickly and try and
Piggyback off that.
piggyback off of
I
that.
think we should be super engaged with the city
Mhm.
on this, and there should be absolutely nothing that they hear that, oh wait, I didn't know that, the port was doing that, no, we want to work.
But they're gonna be tearing up the road.
In my mind, overall priorities for the port. The overall priority right now ought to be to maintain the current bridge safely and open. The second priority, which is right up there at the top, is this project.
I agree.
Agreed. And the engineers were clear, they said if you want to allow yourself complete build out. Whatever that is, the waterfront, it is that way, fix that problem first.
Now, that doesn't mean that we ignore everything else.
No.
But it means that we need to be putting a lot of emphasis on this project right now to get it kicked off.
So three things come out of that. That's the new amendment with KPFF to change the scope of work.
Mhm.
Okay, going after all the grants that we can, specifically Connect Oregon. And then if those grants don't come out, that the port's committing the 1.7 to complete that EDA project.
Well, and I think we need, cause that's a city street too.
Yes.
So this needs to be in concert with the city and we need to be leaning on the city and saying. This is your project too.
We need to be very aggressive on it.
Yep.
And don't wait for phone calls, make the phone calls.
So I would say we shouldn't pledge to put up the money to make this happen. We need to be,
We've got some grant money, let's find out how much we can use and how
Yeah.
much we can move over, but I guess. What they're looking for is the, yes, do
Yes.
this consensus, and then
But if
I
those,
kinda expect to wanna hear something.
but I guess the thing that I want to make sure is that if those grants don't work out, is we make the commitment with EDA. On this $3.9 million project, if those grants don't come out, the port is still committed.
Okay, so
that's
the
when the
next
port needs
question
to
is,
be partnered with the city.
And what if this, and I'm just speaking hypothetically, what happens if the city's like, that's your project?
But it's not, it's the city street.
It's both for a project.
so let's answer the first one.
Yeah.
Which is the grants. Okay, what we need from you is when are the grants likely to hit? And how far along are we before we start using our own big money?
Yeah,
Okay. And then the other issue is, where do we need the connection with the city? So we need kind of a plan of attack and the various moving parts here, and when do they line up?
Would it be reasonable to ask for that by the meeting in December?
yeah, well, we could certainly talk to KPFF and have them start kind of laying out all the schedules and. The coordination, trying to, bring the city on board to find out when their stormwater project and.
I think if you need an okay from us on an amendment or an okay from us on something like that we've already instructed, I think that is. Something that will qualify for a meeting before December 20th, real quickly, via Zoom or in person, real quick. If that needs to be knocked out.
Cool.
Okay. Good direction there.
Great, good work on
Yes.
that,
Thank you.
by the way.
I'm super excited about that. South Apron.
So this one, I have to apologize if there's too much bureaucratic, information and acronyms in it, but I felt like it, because there's a lot of moving parts to this whole scenario. We've got a traditional grant funding program through AIP, FAA AIP grant funding program. And with that, well, let me back up. Our previous CIP that Debbie used as an example to show how we're gonna have modeling for our business centers and our CIP program for ourselves. Basically, the FAA came back and said that discretionary funding we have programmed for you, we can't get it to you. So we had to course correct. We still wanted to pursue ways that we could realize this South Apron project.
Can I just add real quick? That was industry wide. The FAA basically said to hundreds of airports, sorry, funding's not working out the way we thought. We're yanking your money. So that's kind of what happened everywhere. Yeah, go on.
And so there's a discretionary component and there's an entitlement component of these grant fundings. Obviously, discretionary is off the table. So our entitlement funding is 150 every year. We get a carte blanche, but we have to use it within 5 years, not the whole sum, but the first year we have to use it by year 5. So it accrues over time. In conjunction with that program, which first, I guess it's a caveat, generally that can't be used for vertical construction. I'll come back to that. The BIL funding program, now we have this once in a lifetime opportunity where the federal government is infusing money for infrastructure programs all over for transportation and such. What that looks like, the first year, I think I have it in here, but it was 160 and change, or 159. The next year it's 146. And so we can assume it will fluctuate slightly. It's a similar program where it accrues up to 5 years. Only this time, if you don't use it in the 5th year, you've lost it completely. So what you see on page 3 is essentially a breakdown of how we would look to use those 2 funding streams to put together a package where, in conjunction with capital from the port, we could theoretically put together this project and have it built. So again, it can get kind of convoluted. Once the FAA grant program is done, if you get a program to them, it's the 90-10 split. And so what I've shown here is the black is the entitlement program, the blue is the BIL, the red is the planning cost. As we move across, we've got 4S2 match, that's our money out of pocket. Before you see that and say, okay, that's completely out of our pocket, there's a core program that basically takes that 10% of our match for the FAA and it gives us another 90-10 split. That's generally given across the board. And that's what's shown in orange. Worst case, well, and so if you look at in 2025, the construction of the T hangars, since the port is theoretically ponying up their own money to the tune of 710,000, we could go to core up to 200 with a request for up to 250.
It can actually be more than that.
Oh, okay. It was 150. They just raised it to 250, but if it's even better.
We sat through 2 presentations at the state, but I'm on board where the state basically got up and said, hey guys, for the past 3 years, every single person that's asked for core grant money has received their requests. Please ask us for money.
Yeah.
We have money. So and hey, you can ask for more than our limits. You just have to give us a good reason for it.
So I will caution that because all the other airports that are dealing with the same scenario are looking for ways to still get their projects through. So they're going to be going to core with that saying,
Understood.
please, sir, more money, sir.
Understood.
So what the big gist of this whole scenario, in the worst case scenario, if we didn't get any of the core funding, but we still got our FAA and BIL funding, we would be out of pocket $715,000 and have a 10 bank of T hangars. At $50,000 a year, if we average 5,000 per T hanger, there's a payoff in about 14 years, 14 and change. Best case scenario, if we get that 250 and or more, we're looking at, I think it was a total of 300 and change. Our payoff, our cash on cash is then 8 years. So it's
But in 8 years, what are you gonna have to do to that T hanger? Maintaining it?
Nothing.
Nothing. I mean, yeah, our T hangars we have now up on the North Apron, I think they were built in the 70s. So there's you know, minimal maintenance. We're basically talking about metal
Well,
sheds.
I somewhat like the idea of going big on grants.
Yeah.
And I think we've got to learn how to do that and get really aggressive on it.
So I would add one more thing, I just wanted to frame the bookends of the worst case scenario, best case scenario. The best case scenario could get better because I'll go back to that entitlement funding program. They don't want you to use it for vertical construction. If you do ask for that, your sacrifice is you have to wait 3 years for a discretionary ask. The FAA has already said for the next 3 or 4 years, there's not going to be any discretionary money. So
go for it.
Yeah.
that's the plan.
Yeah.
That's the plan, but it needed to be vocalized so that way the consideration.
The real question I've got for you, this is 10 T hangars on
South side.
the south side.
Yep.
We had a discussion earlier today about another 10 or so hangars on the north side eventually. What is our market? Are we flooding it at 20?
So the North Apron hangars are commercial hangars, so they're presumed to be commercial hangars. We have 36 or 37 people on our T hangar waiting list right now. If we build, and it's a different market, you've got a private storage component or a commercial hangar aviation component.
So
It's a
I'm gonna
market.
show my ignorance.
Yeah.
Who's using it differently, commercial versus?
So I'll speak to this. T hangers are people like me who have an airplane.
Yeah.
Who can scare up $5,000 a year to pay for a hangar. The commercial hangars are a lot more money. They're just a lot more. They're like, what were they talking about? 40 grand a year?
But who are you targeting commercial?
Businesses.
Well,
That's
that's
aviation.
in their ballpark.
That's the
not
big-
Yeah, right now we have Hood Arrows in one.
Yeah.
We have a Cloud Cap is in another. We don't have very many commercial hangars at the airport at the moment.
Little
But
capacity.
Their square foot rate is 74 to 78 cents, somewhere in there. The square foot rate for T hangars it's like a quarter. I think it's less than that. It's basically storage for your aircraft.
Okay.
Sounds
Do
like
you
a
think there's a market for both of them?
Yes.
I think the port looking at our favorability to go after T hangars because there's an active, we've got a list of people signed up that want to knock on the door
Yes.
to store their aircraft.
worst case scenario sounds like still a pretty good investment.
Mm-hmm.
That's worst case at 14. I
Yep.
mean,
And Daddy likes it?
Yeah.
Daddy likes it. All I
You know,
can hear.
nothing to do with this particular option. But do we need to have a discussion of how much money do we have in reserve? And how is it likely to grow in the next couple of years? And how much do we want to maintain in reserve? Which allows us to know how much we can go spend on stuff like this. And I could see where we could take 16 bites at the apple and all of a sudden the apple's gone.
Just to dovetail back to the CIP conversation, that's exactly what we're trying to develop. So
Exactly.
in conjunction with new
But,
accounting software, put that together with our long range master.
But I
plan.
don't know.
but
if we
Mike,
could
bigger
wait.
picture, the bigger picture. Let's go after the grants. You can always turn them down, forget them.
No, I agree with that, but I think for everything else, Debbie, we need a guesstimate of where you think we really are, and then we have a discussion of what's the minimum we want to maintain, and then here's what we've got per year that we could
Mhm.
invest in things. Right now, I have no clue. But we're being asked to kick projects off.
I think right now we're just being asked, should we start going after the grants? And I would say that I'm thumbs up.
Yeah, but once we start into the grant, I mean, I think we've got to make a decision that, yeah, this is worthy, let's go do it.
Yeah.
And if it was, and I'm gonna make up a number, if it was taken away half our reserve, I would go, wait a minute.
Well, let me frame this differently. If we don't build these hangars, I don't really see a route to the airport breaking even. Like it desperately needs it.
Don't,
You know.
don't get me wrong, I'm actually in favor of the
Yeah.
T hangers, but due diligence wise, we need to know how much we got in the bank account.
Right, because we're deciding to spend money and there's
Yep.
not a real.
And we
cushion
don't know
there.
how much is there.
what are you asking for on this one today?
The green light to pursue this
Grant.
project.
Yes. I'm thumbs up.
Yep.
Me too.
Okay.
I also want to put out there that I'm happy to actually help on the core grants. Because we did this whole seminar workshop on like how to write them and like.
the things that are important, so I feel like I might be able to come in at some point and help and have some input on. I'm happy to share some time on that,
Excellent.
to try to get these suckers.
They're gonna be
Okay.
competitive.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I'm getting yelled at because I'm running late,
All
so.
right.
It was a dream.
The next one is the
Understand.
bridge replacement impacts, and so there's a memo in your packet, you'll see the map that also we touched base on earlier today on page 87, as far as what's excluded. So, Mike, you want to just kind of let the commission know some of the big issues that will be coming at us?
Sure, I mean, the biggest issues are construction, which is dependent on funding, but with the anticipated schedule, we're anticipating going to construction in October 2025. So we will have our contractor and designer under contract by the 1st of April of next year, and they will start into design. So although we don't have full funding, we will be positioned to immediately go to construction once it's available. So there will not be a lot of delay between funding becoming available and actually going to work, where you would maybe have a big procurement or something that will all be already done, and it'll be a kind of a quick process. So I think from the port's perspective, yes, we don't have funding, but the ability to move quickly is here. So that's where I think you've got a plan to have something that is the ability to short-term make things happen, meaning that could you wait until full funding is here and then decide to move or do something? Yes. But that time frame to make that decision and put it into action would probably be a 9 month time frame. I think the impacts to the facilities are a little varied right now, and we won't know completely until we get the contractors on board, because we need to know what their contracting method is going to be. If they do cast in place, it's a different set of approaches and the way they would approach the project versus a precast approach. I think they'll know that in their pursuit documents. I mean, they will have to figure that out, because they'll have to have figured out, what their cost in the project is going to be. So I think, April, May of next year, we'll know pretty much how they're going to approach the project and know those impacts at that point, and be able to communicate, hey, we think we need this much space, we think it'll be this much time, and be able to give you more detail into that. Right now, there's just a lot of variables to be able to say, yeah, absolutely, this is going to happen, you're going to impact these facilities. Depending on the contractor's, again, approach to the project, for the most part, I think they'll be able to keep things open. But there will be impacts to the boat ramp to some level. I think the marina is going to get much busier with not necessarily, of course, barges coming in, but just shuttles coming in out to bring workers in and out, and those types of things. I think off the marina shore, barges being tied up and those types of things could impact cruise ships coming in. So there will be a lot of coordination that the project will need to do. That's more of a project issue, but it'll also be a port issue, because if the project causes a problem, the port's going to hear about it. So I think those are things that will have to be. And then there's also right away, that's going to be something that we're going to have to work through. I think the IGA could potentially take care of a lot of those issues. But if they're not taken care of in the IGA, then those will be things. So right away, for example, is you've got ownership by the port of the existing roadway that they own today. You've got ownership of the right of way where the new bridge will be. There will have to be some transaction of that ownership of that property. Does the port keep the old roadway? It's kind of no man's land, because it's going to be between the buildings. It's going to probably be elevated. Where the new bridge is, that's probably going to be right away that the bridge authority would want to have. Same thing on the Washington side. You're going to own a piece of property that's kind of no man's land between the new bridge and the old bridge. So I think there's just some right of way components there. That's all gonna be within the next 18 months. That we're gonna have to figure that out, because when the contractor gets on board and starts their staging and construction, they're gonna want access and be able to start moving some of those things. So I think those conversations are gonna ramp up over the next year, and you'll see things being brought forward from the authority to the port based on those impacts.
A couple of things that I see, is that use of the parking lot out here for laydown area. And there was an expectation that, you know, once every 6 months, you'd clear that out so people could come in and fish on the weekend. That ain't gonna happen. They could drive around the laydown area, but we're not gonna lift all of that stuff up and relocate it. That's stupid. So I still think we need to be looking at an opportunity to put a second boat dock in on the far side.
Do you mean a launch?
Yeah,
Oh, okay.
boat launch, on the far side. Apparently you own the property. So that should make it a little easier to go do, perhaps. That's a benefit to the port long term. As you develop that side of it. So I don't know why we wouldn't want to try and do that as long as it doesn't mess up, you know, the whole parking lot issue for the laydown area. That's one thing. Second thing is the building here, I want to, and this is stretching a little bit, but I've learned in public, it's okay to stretch because they do it to us. We'll teach them how to do it to them. Construction starts with the dismantlement of this building.
Mhm.
We do it in 25. Earlier in 25, we hit our target of 18 months. This is the way to make the 18 months. It also supports, we started the bridge, keep the money flowing. So.
And
this is
it'll
the
need
pivot
to,
point right here.
yeah, and it'll need to be an early activity because they'll need to clean this out so that they can start launching, you know, from this side. So it's gonna be an early activity to impact this.
So what's the nexus between the batch of $200 million grants that were recently submitted? And, you know, that's the worst case scenario. You have some money.
Mhm.
Would the project still go on?
Oh, absolutely.
Yes.
There'd be an early project.
We have, and there may be differing opinions. I'm gonna give you my opinion. We have enough money to do the design. 100%, we could get through all of the design, get the design done. Does that mean they're gonna come tear this building down right away? No. They're most likely not going to do that. The problem is the day we get funding, they'll probably want to tear this building down the next day, right? Because they're gonna want to get in and start construction. So it's a matter of, do we have it today? No, but the day we have it, it's not gonna be, oh, 2 years from now, we're gonna come want to start construction. It's gonna be, and the farther we get along with design, the quicker that's gonna happen. Now, if we got money today, yeah, you probably still have 6 or 9 months of design, right? But if we get to June and we find out we have money in June, July, they're gonna be out here with equipment trying to tear stuff down.
Yeah, so
So
let me tell you
it's,
my litmus test for that, and I agree with exactly what you said, it's gonna be cash flow driven.
Yeah.
But we have to anticipate it and be ready for it. If in January, February, we hear from the big federal grants, 200 million, and we get awarded a big chunk of that. Even if it's spread out over a couple of years, the project's going,
right,
and we need to get rid of the building.
for sure.
So,
So is there a scenario where the port could move and there's a delay and this building sits here for a while? Yeah, that's a possibility.
I'd rather have
You
that
could
than-
always lease it, you could always do something with it if that happens, but yeah, I mean, I just, that could happen, right? I mean, you could move, you could go do something and this sits here for a while.
So the direction that you're looking for from the commission is just informational at this point, just to keep us aware.
It's more of just making you aware that you will have you should be planning to move. It's probably in the best interest to do that within the next year.
Okay.
To just accommodate the construction, you know, just be aware though that you could move and, you know, this building could be sitting here for a few years.
Right.
But I
the
think that's
likelihood is
probably-
it's better than 50-50 that we need to be out of here by 25.
Yeah, I agree with that 100. I mean, every indication we have,
Okay.
we are gonna get construction funding. I mean, I really believe that we will see construction funding this year.
That's wonderful to hear.
You know, so, yeah, I think, you know, it's probably time to start making that planning and start moving in that direction.
Okay, so from what I hear, for any direction to staff would be, we probably should look at the possibility of adding a boat ramp.
Could I please add one thing to that? 'Cause I've been saying it for years, I agree. As you look into that, look into the possibilities of putting storage, boat storage, dry storage,
Oh, that's a
et
great.
cetera, in that unused space over there at the same time. Is it possible or not? Because if it is, we should be putting it in.
And I think,
So that's one. The other one we already talked about is modifying Marine One and finding a location for maintenance.
and I think, you know, just so everybody's aware, that whole property on this side is under 6F minus the Marina One buildings. You will have some coordination that you're gonna have to do no matter what we do. It's not impossible, it's just you gotta mitigate for it.
Mhm.
And the mitigation is you have to find another recreational piece of property that's of equal value.
Just let us know what's
So,
possible, what we can do, and what we have
yeah.
to do to do it.
I mean, there's nothing impossible about doing it. So, I mean, it's, you know, anything you want to do on those properties is possible.
Okey dokey. Thank you for that. Bridge repairs and maintenance, is that?
Mike, I mean, I can just go ahead and.
Is this
zip
just
through
an
this.
update?
Yeah,
Or is it
it's
a,
mainly an update. I think the internal bridge committee has
Right.
been reviewing a lot of this information. We've been completing a lot of the projects that are in the budget. And we do have some scopes of work. I was a little the operations manual from Wisjani surprised me a little bit in that dollar amount. And so I do think that we'll probably need to go out and procure the scope for the mechanical and the electrical.
I push back and ask, why is it so expensive? And what that number tells me is there's absolutely nothing to start from. That may be true. Yeah. But that also should tell the commission something too.
So other than that, I think all the other elements, the bridge committee has been reviewing. A lot of these scope items came out through those two meetings.
yeah, and I think that the only thing really that the commission needs to consider. Is load restrictions and whether or not we wanna discuss that after the. Pictures we all saw of all of the weld breaks or weld cracks and. In,
I'll give you my recommendation, I think. And I understand the issue with. The heavy trucks business. But I think if we want to try and maintain this bridge for another 6 to 7, as much as 8 years. We gotta be bold, step out and protect it, which means lower the weight restriction back down to 60. We're still gonna have to spend the money to correct the thousands of welds that are out there. But I think we need to pull the committee together and look at an option of maybe lifting panel on a panel and try and keep the bridge open as much as we can. There may be other options there too, but I recommend bring the weight down and get our well program to get the bridge put back together.
so my main question for that is that something that we wanna. Decide, or is it better to first have a conversation with the businesses that it's going to massively impact?
We did that 6 months ago.
Yeah,
Well, I did jump the gun with Mount Abstract. He's a member of the Bridge Authority, so I called him, talked to him from DC last week. he understands it. Of course, he's not happy about it because it's gonna cause him more cost. The one thing he suggested that if we do this, would we consider lowering the toll rate for those quasi heavy trucks that now get derated? And it's probably in the tune of 33%. To try and somewhat recognize that they're gonna have to make more loads.
That's up to your committee to recommend, whatever
Mhm.
you want there. I do think we can go back to that meeting we had 6 months ago. We said, hey, this is the condition of the bridge. We're gonna let you run at 40 or whatever it is, and we're gonna see what happens. I don't like any more needed, but the evidence seems to be pretty clear what's happening.
I think you can talk to all you want. And I know they're gonna say, please don't do it, don't do it. We still have the responsibility to try and keep that bridge safe and operational.
Well, I'm not saying have a discussion of their opinion, I'm saying have a discussion of, this is why we need to do it. We wanted to have a conversation with you.
I would suggest we make the decision tonight to lower the weight limit. It's gonna take a month to get signs and everything else ready to go for that.
Then we have.
In the meantime, we sit down with the key users and let them know what's going on.
If we don't, it's gonna be passenger vehicles only 2 years from now, I'm afraid. I mean, there'll be no 75% loads, there'll be no loads bigger than a pickup truck.
And you're gonna, my projection and just a projection, you're gonna have a bunch of tires punctured and you really start to spend money on the bridge if we let it go much farther than where it is now.
Mhm.
Would the commission ever want to consider a heavy truck toll?
Can you speak up?
Would the commission ever want to consider as an alternate, a heavy truck toll that would be somewhat prohibitive for use of the toll, but would maybe be somewhat equal to the additional costs that the trucking companies were saying that they were incurring by taking the detour?
The issue
As
there is we're still gonna have to repair the bridge.
Right.
And that's not only very expensive, it's time consuming.
Gotta close it.
And.
Yeah.
We're gonna have to close it to everybody.
Right.
So I would say no.
The lowered weight limit is almost impossible to enforce. But a higher toll is calculated by our system.
I think what we've gotta do on that, and we've thought about that. You know, when we talk to the industry, we've gotta plead with them, you know, this is an honor system. If you screw it up. We're gonna know, but by the time we know, it's gonna be too late. And you're not only not gonna be able to drive across a bridge, your wife, your brother, everybody is not gonna drive across a bridge. And we gotta just
Yeah.
plead with them.
That's just what led me to maybe a higher toll is it might deter use that otherwise will just blow through.
I
And
don't-
could offset that.
I
I
think it's-
honestly don't think the toll.
Yeah, because I think it sends the message that like, oh, we can handle it and the bridge can't.
This is now a weak bridge.
Without knowing nearly enough about the costs, do you think that these heavy vehicle industries would be willing to fork in on the repair to keep it operable? So that we put the
Here's
bill on
problem,
them?
you have to take the bridge out of service to repair it.
Your welding program was one lane closures, right? Or was it?
We used to do one lane closures forever and then traffic's just been getting to be too much.
The volume's
So
too
it's
big.
dangerous.
And it's dangerous. I talked to the welders.
Yeah.
Last Saturday or Saturday, yeah.
I
last
think
Saturday.
that, in the interest of time, you can either table this discussion, or I would recommend that we lower the load limit. Mainly, I mean, we already have the signage, right?
No.
We got rid of the sign?
Replaced it all.
Oh. We should hang on to those signs.
Couldn't we do a tape overlay?
Probably.
But
And we may still have some of the old ones.
I think until the bridge is in, until these welds are repaired, I don't think we have a choice. We can have the conversation again later. we can always change our minds at a later date, but I think right now we need to really focus on getting that bridge fixed.
So I have some documentation from 2019 when I first got here.
Uh-huh.
So I know you guys saw some weld pictures that just looked like it was atrocious. It's the same thing every year.
Yeah.
We have hundreds of welds per panel. And I documented old welds that, you know, were fixed prior years and then new welds in different colors. So you can actually physically see each lane and where it was at.
Do I
But
remember
Ryan-
correctly that when we lowered
No,
the
Ryan-
weight limit, that was John sitting here telling us it was substantially better?
It was,
Yeah,
but there was two parts to that also. We actually maintained our weld program for consecutive seasons, which we hadn't before.
Okay.
And we kind of didn't again because we did have that long period of time where it was quiet. It got trashed because we did up it and we did keep on, you know, finishing out the deck.
Yeah.
Now it's in disrepair like it has been in the past.
Okay, so the other thing to note, to balance that out, yeah, in the past, we've had a welding program, yeah, we've had to make welds. The amount of welds that we've had to make in the past is a strong indication that we overloaded the bridge. You should never, ever have to have that kind of a weld program on a healthy bridge. And it just shows that, you know, when we lowered it, it got healthy. When we loaded it back up, it's now unhealthy.
Okay.
So just because we got away with it with a welding program in the past doesn't mean it was the right thing to do.
And one thing to note, lowering the limit is not banning these trucks. Right. Just gonna have to lighten it up.
Well, bans a few.
There's been a few of them, but a lot of them can carry. In
A
our
lighter-
case, few less bins, they can still use it.
Bins, you know, the bins, I'm not worried about that.
No,
The log trucks.
it's long, it's the big.
Yeah. Logs.
So do we as a group need to have a motion or can we just direct this to happen?
But what I would recommend is go ahead and make the direction. We'll bring a resolution.
Okay.
Ratifying it at the next meeting.
That's a month away.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Go ahead and give the direction. It'll ratify, the resolution will ratify your decision today.
Okay, but
But they can get signs ordered and
Sure. yeah.
everything ready to go.
great,
and-
we can meet with industry and so on.
Cool.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. Everyone cool?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, employee handbook update.
Yeah, this is just, two main, recommendations in the memo. And, you know, I don't know how much detail you want to go into this, but we did this year a benefits comparison with the city and the county. In 2019, we did a salary survey of all of the full-time positions. We don't recommend changes to compensation or benefits at this time for the update to the employee manual. But we do have some recommendations that are tied to career track skills development training. Right now, the court is solely just on a step system for advancement and raises. And they're not tied to specific certifications or trainings. So the longest list, of course, is with the facilities department. These are a list of 19 skills that are of value to the court. That within our current system, one employee could have all 19 of those skills and be at the same pay grade as someone who does not have all those skills. Just based on the time that they've been employed at a certain grade. Right now, the facilities maintenance worker job has 3 grades, 1, 2, and 3. And I think in implementation of this sort of a program, we would end up with maybe 4, 5, and 6. And those would be, your grade would be determined by how many of these valuable skills and which highest priority skills you are certified in, cleared for, and maintain your certification over the years. For example, lifting the bridge. It's a very important skill. It's a very, very valuable skill. And at this point, it's not compensated for in any different way
So
than.
So I'm gonna challenge that one. Earlier, we said we need $137,000 to put together a manual for lifting the bridge. but we've got a lifting of the bridge certification that people passed. How can you pass certification if you don't have a manual? You don't have a procedure.
We have an internal procedure that we've been operating off of. Yes,
With
it's
a
not an
training and
operating
in-person training.
manual, but it's the in-house training to actually go out there and lift the bridge. It's not quite what you're asking for.
It's a
I
hands-on
understand.
training, it's not
Mm.
a book training.
Do we have procedures on all these others?
Some of these things are very specific, like a CDL license. Is something you go through the state, department, you go through a
Yeah.
training, you
Yeah.
do a testing, and so some of these are, or like welding certification or plumber certification or electrical, these are very well-established trade certifications.
Is that what we're using here?
Are
I
those?
think it
being-
We're
depends on
trying
the
to.
job. You know, there is no, Hood River Bridge lift certification course, so that's an internal training like Ryan's saying, but like, for example, welding and fabricator, those are all things that we can use and outside or a state certification for that. We don't have to invent everything from scratch, certainly,
Some of these things seem much higher priority and value,
right?
to me.
Right.
As a past commercial driver, I understand that, for an organization, more of your drivers have commercial licenses, it, cuts down on accident rates,
Yeah.
if that has a really concrete, you just become that much better driver. So to me, that's like, well, that's valuable if we have employees that are driving around a lot. So some of these things, but like, how valuable is a boater's license to our people? I don't
Yeah,
know,
I
so.
agree. There's different value levels that
Are
we would
you,
want to.
are you looking for the commission to say, hey, go ahead and develop
Yes.
something?
Yes, what I'm looking for is commission approval to develop and implement a layer above our step system.
And we would see that proposal before it was implemented.
Yeah,
And
you'll
we'd
see
have
it
to
in
approve it.
December. Yeah. Okay,
Cool.
and
And
then the
then, so
other,
what I'd like to
yeah.
ask the commissioners to do is to really look through the specifics of what Genevieve is looking at. And if you have comments or,
it'd
kind
be
of like,
wonderful to have your opinion
feedback.
on the value of these, what
Yeah.
would, go ahead and start talking about, is that another 25 cents an hour to you or not,
And we did request training,
Yes,
and if staff feels that it would be beneficial as far as advancement metrics as well.
Yeah.
Not just getting the training, then
yeah.
I wanna hear about it, sure.
Yeah, so I don't wanna get in the weeds on
Yeah.
this one, because it is
Yeah.
very in-depth, but I do want commissioners to think about this. Give their feedback to Kevin.
But there's other issues here, and I understand that pressure time, maybe what we need to do is cut this off and have another meeting on this, but I think it's important that the commissioners weigh in together, not individually on these issues, like the next one on item number 2, improve paid time off policies. I've got some very specific yeses and nos on that,
Okay.
that I don't think I should be telling you. I think we ought to be talking about it here and deciding as a board whether to do it or not.
I think we're gonna discuss that right now.
Well, I think we're quickly running out of time.
We could schedule like we were talking, a 30-minute meeting before the December or January meeting to dive in.
Well, I would rather do that and we do this.
Yeah.
And I don't mean
Together.
anything bad, but together, sure.
Mhm.
Yeah, otherwise, why are we doing this?
Well, and another question that I have is how much of this needs to come from the commission? Or how much of this comes from the leadership of our executive director?
Typically, personnel manuals get approved by boards. At least
Right.
everywhere I've been at.
They get approved, but how much input does the commission generally weigh in on the weeds of?
Oh, you'd be surprised.
Okay.
You produce the document and you want to make sure, if you're smart, you would give people lots of time to review it before you expect it to be adopted.
So maybe that's the next step is if you wanna implement kind of. What you think is gonna happen, you can get it to us, we can have a short meeting. To discuss the specifics of it, And then,
But the only negative to that is that you're spending time doing stuff which may not pass us.
right,
And that
So
would be a
to
shame.
me, what you tried to do, I think is right. But we need to take the time to give you feedback from all four of us that,
Yeah.
or five of us that. Yeah, I like this one, not so much, but here's something else maybe you think about
mhm,
that offsets this.
mhm.
That would benefit to the group. Now, the other part of this issue, I'm a little troubled with. All of you guys are sitting here, all of you guys are gonna be impacted by this. I think this is where this kind of a discussion belongs with a very smaller or small section of people. Because we're giving you personnel guidance. When we're talking about money and so on, that needs to be kind of,
Well, we do have a personnel committee that could convene a meeting, you know.
but I think,
No, I agree with you that it would be a good topic of conversation to have a small meeting, maybe just with Kevin and
yeah,
Genevieve and
and the five of
the
us.
five of us. Okay,
So are we gonna talk about the paid time off right now at all, or are we gonna table this discussion for another meeting?
I think we should take that.
That's fine, I mean, I just want, some guidance.
Okay. Okay, so if that's it. Then we can adjourn the work session. And return to regular session. And so we're entering regular session at 4:27. Which is so much later than I wanted it to be.
Well, you guys told me that the fall planning was gonna take a while. I came prepared with caffeine. I'm so hopped up.
Well, no, I have a question.
turn off at 4.
So we're in the process of submitting our BIP application,
Uh-huh.
and I think I heard that we're going to reduce the bridge load rating back down. Do we know what number we're gonna take it back down to, and do we wanna try to put that in our BIP
Yes.
application?
Yes.
Because it's literally in the final reviews right now and going in next week, so, and with what I heard, it basically went into effect today.
No, it'll go into effect next month.
Yeah, it's gonna take,
Okay,
take a month to get signage and stuff.
What does it need to be at to?
do we know what we're gonna take it to, and can we
I
can
would
we,
suggest we take it back down to where we had it before, which
I
was
think was
60.
64?
64.
For some reason, I was thinking
32.
64.
Well, 64, we saw that, it wasn't impacting the wetland. So I would say take it to 64.
Is everybody comfortable if we put that in our report?
That really helps our numbers, justify.
I just wanted, I don't wanna
Yeah.
put it in there if we're not.
Well, I think you can
comfortable.
easily say that the commission is going to be adopting a resolution
Yeah.
in December.
Yep,
To take it to 64.
okay, so we're, okay, I'm sorry, we're
That's good.
in the
No,
process
good
of it,
question.
so it's.
Okay, so any questions about the consent agenda? If not, can I please get a motion?
Move to approve consent.
Can I get a second?
Second,
Any discussion? If not, all in favor?
I,
Aye. Mr. Paul?
1 second. There was one. I'm good. All right.
Do we need another bridge replacement project update? No, any question, anyone have questions for Michael, I should say, and if not. Executive Director report,
Nothing to report.
great, Commissioner Committee report.
Read the clock.
Read your notes.
There was an Uber and no meeting last night, but they focused on the west side.
Okay.
And I guess I'll just add that we did, we met with the WAM people and had a good discussion with them. We're just working on just relationship building and partnering with them in airport development, looking towards future opportunities. So, and it was very good.
That's awesome.
Sarah, that
Any action items? None. Any commission call? Anyone have anything that they want to say, Mr. Commissioners?
I just got one, maybe it's someplace else in here, this one issue on variable message sign purchase.
Yeah.
Are we still doing that or have we already?
We just, that was in the consent agenda.
Okay, I didn't see it in the, okay, here was my question on it and it's just a quick check. The one that we're purchasing, that it's kind of like it's on tires and so on and it's over on the other side.
Yep.
Is there permanent electrical hook to it?
No.
Okay,
Solar.
so we have an earthquake. We've got it setting over there. How do we turn it on?
But you just said it's on solar, right?
Yeah,
Can you do it remotely?
I don't know if the actual switch, manual switch, but everything else is remote from any.
That don't count. If you can't turn it on.
I'll have to
you
check
got a
it.
problem. That was the only question I had here. I agree totally with doing it.
Yeah.
But we gotta make sure that we can turn it on over here, because you're not gonna get across the bridge.
One thing just to piggyback on that, so I have talked to the White Salmon City Manager. And they are interested in doing a mutual aid agreement for things.
And I think that's good, but you want the ability to turn that sign on yourself. You don't wanna wait for mutual aid while you have a traffic jam and you got more people coming from the north to the south. It's kind of silly to spend money for that when you can't turn it on remotely.
Unless we make it a procedure where it's on, because it's solar powered, it's gonna charge itself and stay on, but there's no message.
You gotta figure that out.
Yeah, yeah. But that's something I can check into to make sure that we
Yeah.
can either
Before you
buy
actually
something
buy
that
it,
we can
make sure
remote
that
into.
It can
Well,
be turned
Yes.
on.
Yes.
I'm done.
Okay, and so we don't have any directives to staff except for everything that we talked about.
Like they add another half hour in the meeting.
I'd really not like to go over those again. So on that note, I will, recess, regular session and we will enter into executive session or as 192.602I, performance evaluation for public officers and employees.
If you're taking off, thank you for all your work.